Hello there, and welcome to a very special behind-the-scenes episode where we're going to be doing something that we don't normally do. And that's going through some of the rules that we use here over in LAWhammer. As you are probably all aware, we don't use quite the rules that you find presented in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, even though I was responsible for writing a huge chunk of those. The reasons for that are long, deep, and explained in many other streams, and if you do want to know more about that, hike it over to the other streams, because that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about, instead, character generation. And for that, we have brought a mysterious guest out from the very depths of the darkest corners of our living room, where only goblins dare tread. Yes, indeed. For this very rare and extremely special day, we have our Corner Goblin stepping out from behind the camera to the front. Dare you even look? Dare I even press the button? Dare I do it? Here she is. It's Erin! Yay! And you'll probably find that over sitting beside Erin, we have, as always, our lovely, beautiful Lindsay.
Probably fine.
Just in case you thought that Erin had two heads. As it turns out, sadly, if it's true, she's only showing us one of them today. So I'm going to have a quick discussion about what we're going to do today. We have a few things that we're going to be covering. Most importantly, we're going to go step by step how we do our character generation here over in LAWhammer. This is going to be the first part of probably 2 videos. Our second video is going to be taking you step by step how we enhance characters. So we take in a character that perhaps has just been built. Indeed, it will have just been built, and then add a bunch of XP and turn it into something a little bit different using the experience system that we use. So, for those of you that know Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, you're going to find the vast majority of what we're doing is extremely familiar to you. If you've never played Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, or alternatively, you just like to see the differences between our version of character generation and the established version, you're about to get that shown to you as we go. It's also worth noting that if you are watching this live, and if you are, hey, you rock, I'm going to be watching your comments, but not as they come in. I'm going to be flicking back to them every once in a while. And if you have any questions about anything that we're doing, ask them. And I will bring them up, I will read them out. And if they're for me, I will answer them directly to you. And alternatively, if they're for Erin, or maybe even Lindsay on the side, we'll bring those up and we'll discuss them as we go. However, do note that if the questions are things like, oh, what day is it today? Or alternatively, something like, could you please tell me the obscure piece of lore about orcs and goblins down in Black Fortress Hill? Or something like that. I'll say, for another stream. Today we're talking about character generation specifically. But if you have any question about character generation, be that something you're trying to build yourself, or why is it the way it is, or what can you do to do it differently, do not be afraid to ask. That's what this stream is all about. Alrighty. Once we get going, oh, the alarms are already going. Do we have to stop already?
No.
No? Oh, no, we're good. What we're going to be doing today is going step by step through character generation from step 1 all the way through to having a complete character at the end. We don't know how long that'll last. It's going to last for as long as this stream goes. There's a reason that Lindsay's here as well. Lindsay knows the rules really rather well. So that means that if there's anything I can't help Erin with, because I'm actually quite some distance away from her over on the other side of the table, Lindsay can quickly go, the talent does this. This is your choice between this one or that one, because they've got all the rules beside them. Nevertheless, I'm going to be introducing each one of the rules as we go. So before I take a look at the potential of any questions, I'm now going to turn over to the always lovely Corner Goblin to see if there's anything that she would like to say.
Hi, everyone. It's very strange being this side of the camera, but I'm going to put all my anxieties aside and trying to be useful and entertaining. So I was going to say where this all came from. Actually started in March, which is ridiculous. It's taken this long, but scheduling and such. But for about a month, I was traveling down to the borders on a bus for an hour, and I asked in the Discord group, do you want to join our Discord? I'll put a link up here because I do those things. And I said, ask me anything. And someone asked me if I could play a character, what would I play? My initial response was Dumpling, because Dumpling is my favourite character. She brings me so much joy. And then I said, if I was going to make a character from scratch, I had to think about it. And I decided that I would make a character based on my grandpa, which is what we're doing today. And I would probably play a dwarf just because there's no dwarfs in the game and I thought that'd be fun. But I'll leave some kind of explanations about where that's all coming from as we go, rather than divulge all now.
This is going to work particularly well, actually, because Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 and the version that we use for our LAWhammer streamlined version, so to speak, provides you with both the option to do it entirely randomly and the option to choose and fix what you want to be, which is super handy if you already have a concept in your mind that you want to play, which in this case, Erin absolutely does. Alternatively, if you just want to randomly generate something and see what comes up, you can do that too. And I think Lindsay is actually half planning to do that in the background while Erin's making her character as well.
Yeah, I'm going to be generating a friend for Erin's character, but Erin has not defined her character's friends yet, so it will be whatever I roll.
Excellent.
For better or for worse.
Do love it. So I'm having a quick check over at the comments because I've got a pad and I can do that as we're going as well. Is this the fabled high XP named character stream?
No.
No. I have a question about your rules. Let's find out what it is. This is from the bloke person. You have a kind of competency chart for talents. 1 being local, 8 being 7. Is that 8 being 7 plus continental? Do you have a version for skills too? Yes, bloke person, we do. I haven't posted that one up, but it's a really good one. I'll get onto that when we get onto the skills part. If I forget it, tell me when we reach skills and say, hey, Andy, you said we're going to be discussing this. You haven't done it yet. But we'll do it when we get to skills because skills is going to be discussed a little bit when we get there. And will this be put up on YouTube as a video to watch later, says Dara Strix. It certainly will be. The plan for this one is that it will be taken off because we're just going to mess around with this one. And then Erin's going to run away and do all those Corner Goblin things. And she's going to hopefully break it all down into the different steps of character creation with a nice little card between each one and possibly even pointing up to things and making things happen like magic.
Yeah.
And then that will be popped up on YouTube later. So we will have a video on demand of this one later. Also, you sound a bit quiet compared to your normal volume. You bloke person, this is a sad indictment of the current state of affairs with our mics. We're aware of this. Even before the stream, I turned my volume up ever so slightly, aware that I might be quieter. I'm actually speaking slightly louder on my end, knowing they're going to be slightly louder. If I turn my volume up any further, it adds so much hiss that it's just not worthwhile. We're getting a second mic for me to have down here in the corner to remove all of that in the future. But that mic has yet to arrive. It won't make a difference if you're watching this later on the VOD though, because hopefully it will all be nice and clean. Much like episode 45.
It's a home rendering and I'm hoping this render will work.
Yeah, great. Okay, so that's where we are in terms of our questions. I'm now going to pop over and start with characters. How do we do our characters? Right, so the document you're looking for is LAWhammer Char Gen for Erin. So I've made a document for Erin, which basically is the entirety of our version of the character generation rules that you would find in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. It is extremely similar. It does a couple of extra things, and I'll discuss those as we go along, and I'll tell Erin what to do with each one of the steps. But you'll find the steps go in the same order, just with a couple of extra details as we go along. You'll also find that some of the tables have been completely changed, because obviously our game has got more species you can play, for example. It's also got significantly more careers that you can choose from, all of which are randomized up on different tables that obviously are outside the book. Plus, we also have something called heritages, but we'll get to that very soon. So the first thing you do is, it's almost like I was foreshadowing it, species and heritage. So your species is your species, whether you're an elf, a dwarf, a human, or anything similar. You've got a D100 table that you roll on. Now, if you know what you want, that's okay too, but you still roll. Because if you roll it, you're going to get an XP bonus.
Ooh.
Now, to get dwarf, you will need to roll 81 to 90 on a D100.
Okay.
Other than that, you won't. Now, if you stick with what you've got, you get yourself a little bonus of 20 XP. So if Lindsay randomizes completely and she likes what she gets plus 20 XP. If you don't like it, you can just change it to human, default, and you still keep that 20 XP. Because there's more humans in the Empire than anything else, and it's set up for playing in the Empire largely. Or alternatively, you can just pick your species and you don't get the XP bonus. Well, 20 XP is not much.
I see, people, you always talk about XP, and I'm in the corner going, and they're like, oh, and like, I don't know if that's a lot or not.
It's 100's generally enough to get a good chunk of skills.
I feel like it needs clarifying. I've sat in that corner from what we understand, about 300 hours. And the reason I'm thinking this is good, I am genuinely new, but I don't know how to play this game. at all. Like, I've got no clue how anything works other than that 88 is bad.
No.
Not always.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes
I know the A's are bad. So I'm like, okay, I'm taking this as a noob. So hopefully it means other people who don't know our stream or don't know how to play can learn. So I'm going to roll and see what happens.
Okay, so do bring it in, see what we get. What did you
I
roll?
got 62.
62 is?
Human.
Human. What did you roll?
I rolled 41.
Which
Human.
is? Human.
I'm gonna keep
so if
your
you keep
friend's
it,
a human.
no.
Okay, my friend's a
If
human.
you don't keep it, you got turf it out, and you say you would rather be
I want to be a dwarf.
Yeah,
Yeah.
For those of you who have followed our blog over on Patreon, you'll know that Erin, a year and a half ago, said that if she was going to randomise anything up, it would almost certainly be a dwarf
Yeah.
anyway. So it's no great surprise. This is before we even started streaming. Back when we were, baby little neophytes who had absolutely no idea what streaming live every week was going to be like. Terrifying with so many tech mishaps. So many tech mishaps, and also extremely expensive equipment.
I sometimes regret committing to 4K just because of the rendering.
I don't regret that. Never. Okay, so we've done that. The next thing to do is randomize your heritage. Now, if you go to your species page, so you should be able to scroll down, you'll find one with a couple of pictures for your one. So you'll go to the dwarf page, and in your case, you go to the human page, Lindsay.
Okay.
We were using the same one, but I'll open.
And
one
you'll notice
separately
that
now.
there's a nice little bit there that says Dwarf Heritage, Carakankor, or the Empire. And you roll in it. So roll that one.
I got 76.
So you are from
The Empire.
the Empire, which makes sense. You're an Imperial Dwarf.
That makes
living
sense.
in and working with humans.
I rolled 44.
44
I
for
am
human.
a Reiklander.
All right, Commander. Lovely. So if you keep what you've got rolled, you get plus 10 XP. It's a tiny little bonus, but it makes it a bonus. Now, this is something that we have in our version of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay that's not in the basic set. In the basic set, you can just be a Reiklander of your human, or you just are a dwarf of some unspecified lineage, and you just kind of make it up. In our case, we've got rules made up for all the different types of people from across the Empire. We've got different rules for different types of dwarves, different types of halflings, different types of elves, right down the line. They all get different skills and talents. So, yeah, that's why we have that little extra heritage step in step 1. And that's it. You've decided where you're from. You've decided who you are. We skip past that, go all the way up to step 2, where it says career path.
Okay.
So the next thing you do is step 2, career path. You know what your species is. You next decide what's your job. What do you do when you're not wandering around adventuring, kicking ass, chewing gum, and being all out of gum? Again, you can randomize it, see what you get, or alternatively, you can pick. And much like before, you get a little XP bonus, in this case, 50 XP, if you keep what you roll. If you don't keep what you roll, you can roll 3 more times, and you get 25 XP if you keep what you roll. And if you still don't like what you run, you just pick one. Okay, so in your case, Lindsay, do your D100 roll, and also for yourself, Erin.
So, I do have an
Even
idea.
if you know what you want,
We know
it's
what
worth
I'm going to
rolling
roll.
just to see what you
I'm
get.
good. So, yeah, the character I'm basing this on, I say character, human, is my grandpa, who was a mechanical engineer. And that's why I want to be an engineer and taking some notes from him. So I'm trying to get 31, and if I do, then I'll get that sweet 50 XP extra. Sweet. Okay, I got 24, so no. That would have been cavalryman.
Interesting for a dwarf.
Oh, no, I'm in the human path. Oh, okay. See, everything. Yeah. Mistake number 1.
It helps if you
There
check
we
the
go.
right table. There we go.
21 would have been banker.
A banker?
No, sorry, 24. 24 would have been bounty hunter. That would have been.
Bounty hunter.
Yeah, no, I still need 32 to 30. Well, I keep
So
rolling
then you've
again.
got 3 rolls, and if any of your 3 rolls get the one you want,
One,
you got
I
25
get
XP
XP.
bonus.
Okay,
If you
so
don't,
let's
you just
try
go, screw this rolling randomly, I'm a dwarf, I'm choosing engineer.
Yes. So you're looking for
What-
32
what-
to 33.
I rolled scholar.
Oh, interesting.
How are you feeling?
I feel that's all right.
Yeah, you happy with that one? Yeah, like that. Take your 50 XP.
Okay. Nope, that was an
Scholar.
86, which would have been soldier.
Let me just check I'm on
Soldier's
the right
nice.
table.
Okay, 2 more rolls. 66
Which would have been
in gambler.
a gambler.
I don't believe my grandfather was a gambler, but
He might have been.
we don't know. And 82. So, no, I did not get that. Would have been soldier again. So I didn't get it. So I don't get that
Didn't get
XP,
it,
but
so
I'm still going to commit to the character I envisioned.
Excellent. So you've chosen engineer, and you've got scholar over on your side, yes? Right, I'll just check the comments, see if there's anything there. Can Andy make a fishman character? Can I? Yes. Do I have rules for it? Yes. And believe it or not, after all that fishman chat, I have rules for them in my game. I'm not giving them to you yet. Yeah, I'm a bit of a dick. So we have a scholar human and an engineer dwarf, says Podrak. Yes, we absolutely do. Is the next time the fabled XP experienced character stream? No, it's not. The next one is building up a basic character into a more experienced one, but this is for PCs. I will, however, be doing a stream about also doing it with NPCs. I've been discussing with Erin actually about doing a variety of fun little side streams about how basic rules work and how to build NPCs, how to build campaigning stuff, just to help you all either follow what we're doing or alternatively use what we're doing in your own games. So yeah, we're definitely doing that. It's just like most of the things here at LAWhammer, we have so much on, we tend to take our time before we get there. Because, you know, we're busy people. We have jobs. We have things to do. Art to do. Stuff. All right, anyway, so we've chosen our jobs. We know who we are. The next step is number 3, which is your stats. Attributes. So, every single species in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay has got their own range of stats. They all have the same stats, but at different numbers. Dwarves are better than humans at some things, but not necessarily quite as patient. And humans are the general all-rounders of the party. When you roll your stats, it's exactly the same as Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 in terms of the dice that you roll. It's always 2d10. You add those 2d10 together and you add whatever the numbers are there. Now, you've got a total of 10 stats. You're going to want to write these down before you go. You might be changing these numbers a few times, so be aware of that before we get there. And the bits to write down are, if you look at page 13 in our funky little document, weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, initiative, agility, dexterity, intelligence, willpower, and fellowship. That's the 10 stats of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. You will note, though, we're about to hit a change after this because there's a stat that we just don't use. And I'll get to that when we get there. Lindsay's looking so confused. She doesn't know what the stat is because she's been playing our version for so long, she's literally forgotten.
Resilient?
That's the one, resolve and resilience.
I thought you were going to get rid of weapon skill and I was going to make a little cheer.
No, it's not happening.
Damn
I mean, you know, if we ever write our own rules, it's gone. Because weapon skill is, let me just say this one more time. The clue is in the title, a skill. And in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, there is a category for skills. But, you know, the basic rules, we stick with the standard stats from Warhammer. So you go through each one of these 10 skills when hopefully you've written the little bits. Generally, if you want to use the common shortened form, is WSBS, STI, AGI, DEX, INT, WIL, and FEL. So the last 5 get the first 3 letters. The first ones just get the first letters of each word. That's generally how they're recorded.
I always write willpower as WP.
Indeed, it is quite common. In fact, I think WP is what we use on the card sheet as well, as I recall. So you always roll 2d10 and add the requisite number afterwards. In Human's case, it's always 2d10 plus 20 for all of them. So it's super easy for her. She just rolls 2d10. If she rolls a 5 and a 1, that's 6. So she's got 26. And so you understand what this number is for. If you don't know already, this is the number you'll be attempting to roll equal to or under when you do a test. So if you roll 26, you're going to be succeeding about a quarter of the time. If you roll 33, it's a third of the time. Makes a bit of a difference. So if you have a little look there down at the dwarf stats, you'll see the first one is plus 30 because they're a little bit better at weapon skill than humans.
Babes.
Babes, yes. I can't believe you call me babes. Babes.
The title's wrong.
What's the title say?
Lorebeard's Black Crown.
Oh, we already know that.
Okay.
Oh, well, we've got a stupid title up. I can't fix it because it's over there.
Okay.
I literally can't fix it. We're just going to have to live with it. Unless at some point I run off to the toilet.
Or Hawk shows up.
Or Hawk shows up. Yeah, someone shows up and changes it. Secretly in the
background. Does Hawk have that power? I thought maybe you had that power.
I think Hawk has the power.
Yeah,
maybe. Possibly. If you're out there, Hawk, do tell us. If you don't, I'm going to run over there and do it at some point when it doesn't matter. So, weapon skill is your first one. And you roll 2d10 plus, in your case 20, in your case plus 30.
Plus 30.
Okay, so you roll that. And just work your way down. While you're doing that, I'll check if there's any comments. Yep, it's not lower beards. It's not black. I'll see if I can change that.
And mine was plus, 30.
It's plus 30. Yeah,
Yeah,
just check your little
I'll
list
show
there.
you.
Oh, is it just the one here?
It's just the one.
Look here. For the dwarf. So I'll put mine here because it'll be bigger. Look.
So while we're doing that,
I've seen it now. Thank you very much.
while he's doing that, I'm going to creep over and see if I can change the title of the show.
Yes.
So there's going to be this empty spot right here. In fact,
I can just change this so it looks like you're sitting really still in the edit. So that's my weapon skill of 40.
Nice.
Is it?
Well, no.
I don't know.
It's sort of average for a dwarf.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I'm a tough scholar. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I might need to change these around, especially if my intelligence is super bad.
there I have, like magic, hopefully change that over on the side. Did it work? Do tell me over in the comments. So they're working their way down through their numbers. Do tell me how they're going.
My ballistic skill is 39.
Ooh, good shot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So your strength is plus only 20. I thought they would be his base would be stronger, but there you go.
You'll find that when I go through my complete base revision, this is worth noting. When I go through all my revisions for the species, the dwarves are going to be increasing in strength, and believe it or not, even further in toughness, even though they're already tougher.
Strength is 36.
Nice.
I'm an incredibly average human. I've got some strengths, and I've got some. Well, actually, no, I don't really have any significant weaknesses. My lowest one is initiative at 27. Intelligence 37, fellowship 37, toughness 38. That's fine for a scholar.
My toughness is 38 as well because I didn't
That's
roll
embarrassing for you.
I know. I only rolled 8.
It happens.
He's busy putting on entertainment. That's his priority. I don't need to punch hard.
Do you think I'm a he, a she, or a they?
You can be whatever you want.
I'm a he because I'm based on my grandpa. And
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how I can turn his name into a dwarf name.
What's his name?
Jim Hunter or James Hunter. Hunter, I feel like...
Jacobus. Jacob is
It's very empire.
is James.
Uh-huh.
So-
Hunter is amusingly Jaeger.
Jaeger.
So...
Jacobus Jaeger. That's a
Jacobus
great
Jaeger.
name.
But it's very...
Jacobus is
very
more
human.
halfling
Yeah,
as well.
very
How
human.
do we make it more dwarfy?
You'd really want to make it more dwarf if you can, because even the Imperial dwarves still hold on quite tightly to many of their traditions.
I've got it.
Yes.
Spell Jacob with a K.
I mean, Joseph Bugman.
Exactly.
I mean, Joseph is nothing more than a standard... Yeah, quite.
Jacob.
Jacob is not a bad name. I think it'd do perfectly.
So Jacob Jaeger. Well,
It doesn't need to be Jaeger, but it
Jacob
could be
something.
something son, for example.
Okay.
His...
Jacob
you could go for
What was your
great-
great granddad's name?
That's
it's
a
all
question.
they're all mucks. Like,
No, his first name.
oh, my great grandpa. I don't actually know. All I know is he died quite young.
What was his Mick name?
Oh no, he was been Hunter. It's my grandpa's name. So let's hear. I'm trying to think of other family names I could take for that. Oh, grandpa did.
Oh, worry about that later.
We'll worry about that later. We'll get to that
all your
later.
stats sorted out first.
Initiative 33.
Nice. Initiative 33.
Agility. This would be really funny if this is one that could once.
So again, as I said at the beginning of the stream, if you have any questions at all about character generation or anything they're doing, feel free to just drop them into the comments, because as is often the case when you're making up characters, there's periods where those who are watching on have nothing to do. And I'm pointing at myself here. That being the case, if you've got any questions for me as we're going, do feel free to drop them into the comments. Equally, if you've got any questions about what they're doing or their thoughts or what they think of anything that's occurring, do feel free to ask. And if they pass my filter, as I look down at my comments, I'll pass them over to them.
And if you're waiting for us to do this, you could go over to our Patreon and see the rules and such for yourself.
Indeed. All of the house rules that we use that we posted up publicly, you can find over on Patreon. We don't post our rule changes behind any pay barriers or anything similar over on Patreon unless they are not finished yet. And we're in the process of doing them and taking in some extra ideas before we polish it off and then publish it publicly. So most of the rules that we have out there, you can just find by popping over to our Patreon blog and just having a quick run through. Yeah, pointing up there. Nice. As Portrak says, at least some of the rules. Yeah, quite. At least some of the rules are up there.
Have you done yours?
I'm still working on mine.
Okay, I'll read mine out so you can see what
Okay,
you
let's see how you're going
Weapon
so far.
skill 31, ballistic skill 29, strength 34, toughness 38, initiative 27, agility 28, dex 33, int 37, willpower 30, and fellowship 37.
And 37 was pretty decent for a scholar. That's pretty good. Now, if you're happy with those and you don't feel any need to change, 50 XP.
Yeah, I'll keep them.
Or you can swap
No.
some around.
I'm gonna stick with
You're
it.
going with random.
I'm going
pure
with total
chaos, man.
random.
Because you're making a human as well, you're going to need to go grab the chaotic blood table. For when we get there.
It's the best day of my life.
Dwarves don't get chaotic blood.
We're special.
Think of all those random talents I'm going to get in the chaotic blood traits that I was cruelly denied as elemental wife.
Okay,
And all the fate points. I
Wins
start with
pretty well there.
And wins works
Portrait
differently.
thinks that your stats actually seem pretty high for a human. And
Yeah, they're all
reckons
right.
you're doing pretty well
I
there.
did do pretty well.
Do you want me to just run through all of my
Yeah, go for it. What have you got?
So, weapon skill 40, ballistic skill 39,
Mhm.
strength 36,
Mhm.
toughness 38,
Mhm.
initiative 33.
Mhm.
Sorry, am I get that? Is that
Agility.
Agility 24.
Dexterity.
Dexterity 43.
Mhm.
Intelligence 38. Willpower 50. And fellowship 19.
Not the friendliest of potential
didn't-
entertainers.
You didn't really roll that well on your 2d10s, did you?
There's a few rubbish ones. Like
Yeah,
my
yeah.
my fellowship was a rubbish one, and my toughness was a rubbish
But
one.
then you've got like a 19 and an
Mhm,
18. It's
mhm.
sort of
Yeah,
averages
it's
out.
a mix.
You have a couple of choices here.
Mm-hmm.
Choice number one is to swap them around. And by that I mean the 2d10 rolls. So if you rolled, for example, for your toughness 9, and you rolled for your weapon skill, let's say 13, you could go, I'd rather put the 13 over onto the toughness and add plus 13 on, and add the plus 9 over to the weapon skill, because weapon skill is not as important to me. If you do that, and just keep the numbers you have, you get yourself a bonus of 25 XP instead of 50 for not swapping them. Or you can just go, fuck those numbers, I don't like them, they don't match my vision, man, and just re-roll them entirely.
Well, I don't think I'm going to go that extreme, but from perspective of as someone who is noob doesn't know what is an area that I should be looking.
So
I have
to find
one-
that out,
Yeah.
find that out, go and look at your career, engineer, and you'll see the 3 attributes that a starting engineer will be working on.
I would worry about that much less because we've not reached careers yet. The thing I'd worry about is, what's your vision?
Oh, okay.
Okay, what's your vision?
He should have
'Cause
higher.
that's what we're chasing.
I think he should have higher fellowship because he's meant to be an
That's what I
entertainer.
thought.
Yeah.
And fellowship is not an engineer core attribute at all. But I do agree that fellowship for this character makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense because you intend this character to move from engineer into entertainer later. So that being the case, I definitely think a swapping of your fellowship does make sense.
Okay, and what would you say is probably the least important so I can try and pick one of the higher ones?
There is no least important. For many characters, they go, the old dump stat. Which stat will I just throw away?
Yeah.
For an engineer, though, dexterity is super useful because that's what you're using
I've
to
already
make the
got
stuff.
fairly high.
Yeah,
Dexterity.
Okay,
and ballistic
and that's
skill?
for many people. No, ballistic skill, very useful for
Yeah.
engineers and your shots.
Well, ballistic skill is 19, but I was thinking it's not just useful for an engineer, it's useful for an entertainer who's been an engineer because you might want to be a sharpshooter
Bang!
entertainer.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I've told you the enemies like the idea. So I'm going to just explain the idea. Is this dwarf has a traveling caravan full of mechanical wonders that he uses to entertain people in his travels. That's the idea. So yeah, I feel fellowship is important. He should want to entertain people.
I might consider, given
But
that your
strength-
rolls are mostly average, I might just consider a reroll right down the line. There's nothing wrong with that. Totally fine. I have done that. Sometimes I've rerolled like 12 times to make sure I get the right mix.
Well,
One of the joys of Warhammer is you have freedom to make the character the way you want, and if it doesn't quite run up the way you want, you can just go, yeah, screw it, let's start again.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to mid-max it, but at the same
No,
time,
no,
so
it's not
so
mid-max.
I'll give it another
So
go.
we'll just
I'm not gonna
re-roll-
go- So you just go right down the line.
Just write down the
you-
whole
you
line
do
and
the whole
and
line
then-
and just take
See-
each number
Yeah, just-
again.
And then just write it down
then
like
you-
so you've got 2 columns and then you can pick between them or
Okay, let's do
whatever.
that again. So with
You won't be picking between them when you reroll your
Oh, when
reroll.
you reroll, you reroll.
Yeah,
don't you?
totally.
Okay, so
So
I'm just
go
committing
ahead.
to the second
Yeah,
track.
just commit to the second one. So you go for that while I check any particular questions here. So first, Here we go. Gerhardt must have been super lucky to get so much intelligence, says Brasswing. No, he wasn't lucky. Right from the very outset, much like Erin at the moment, has chosen to play an engineer that she has a very particular view for how this particular engineer should turn out. At the very, very beginning, Ed had an idea for how he wanted his Gerhardt to be. And he wanted to have an absent-minded genius. Somebody who was exceedingly intelligent, but simultaneously, for all he was of noble birth and should really know better, was prone to just going off on his own, thinking his own thoughts, ignoring the world around him. And he chose chaotic blood traits that absolutely matched his preferences. And when we get to the chaotic blood trait section, you'll see how that works. But in Gerhardt's case, he actually chose, well, in Ed's case, he chose absent-minded genius. He chose a bunch of traits that supported exactly who his character was. And that's one of the great joys of not just the LAWhammer version. This is also one of the joys of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay in general, that you do have the freedom to almost pick and choose what you want as you go along. It's just you don't get the same bonuses, the same benefits.
Erin rolled worse on every single
line.
I think Erin's about to move to roll number 3.
But there's a fellowship one. Let's see what happens.
If you get Max or Fellowship, I will respect you if you keep this.
It's better than it was, but it's still not fantastic.
Roll again. So I'll go down to the next question. Chaotic Blood might be one of my most beloved additions that's been added, says Potrak. Thanks very much. We still don't have a full table on that. If you don't know what Chaotic Blood are, they're a bunch of extra traits that show that humanity is just a bit different in the Warhammer world. It's been steeped with magic for generations, and sometimes odd things happen. Half of the characters, just keep rolling.
I just keep on rolling.
Don't worry about that.
Just keep on rolling the dice.
Keep on rolling. Half the characters inside the novels tend to have some sort of special rule. If we go right to the very beginning of Warhammer Fantasy Battles books, the novels, the very first trilogy, for the main novel trilogy, Conrad had one eye one colour, another eye the other colour, and he could sort of see the future. There's other characters who can divine things, touch things, understand what they are. Some characters who are said to be tainted or touched or mutated, but aren't actually mutants. And they're very big, very small, very strange. The stats do not look good.
It's even worse than the last
one. Yeah, it's just getting worse.
She's going to be rolling nothing but 1, 1, 1, 1.
No, she's rolled 3, 2 and a 1 twice.
Oh, hilarious.
Jimmy, come on.
We've got a host
Spirit of Jimmy.
We have a host of special traits called Chaotic Blood traits, but we don't have enough. If you want to find out more about them, head over to our Discord, which I presume is going to be up there. I don't know. I'm just pointing in random directions. Erin is planning to add these things in later. I'm
over here.
Go over to our Discord. We have a topic laid up for Chaotic Blood traits, and you can add your own ones in, and I'll be sifting through those and adding them into our Chaotic Blood tables. We currently have a D1000 table of them, which is around about half full. So we're up at results of about 600 and something that I'm relatively happy with. And you can go and look at that table right now if you want to go have a browse through it all. Moving down. Oh, this is the worst, because I've got bifocals that are relatively new, so I can't read the way I used to be able to read. I've got to read at funny angles. It's weird. Anyway, how would lone adventuring Saurus interact with the world? Very badly. Would they have a little skink chameleon skink buddy with them to do all the non-stabby things? Probably the only thing that would stop them from going potentially feral. I mean, Saurus, that's a whole thing. That's not really a character generation thing. That's more how to use different species. So I won't go into it in any real depth. Are you rolling again?
It's even worse that time.
Excellent. Roll again. But I will say we do have already, because I was going through the rules for the different species. I built my rules for my skinks. I built my rules for my Saurus. I'm in the process right now of rebuilding my rules for my dwarfs, my ogres, and my elves, because I'm actually going to make them better. I make other parts of them worse, but better. If you've been following LAWhammer for any length, you'll know that I've built a variety of elf path rules for the elves. And that looks like it brings benefits, but it is a surprising limiter on how elves interact during play. And I do mean a significant one. It really brings balance to elves and makes them not look so much like they are as elf bullshit, to use the in-game parlance from LAWhammer over the course of the last year. as they appear to be if you just look at the neat rules. So yeah, I'm going to be making some further changes in those front, but we do have ones for our Lizardman and our Saurus. Okay. Battlesquig says, Conrad is such a great book. Yeah, it is quite fun. Stump says, I've gone through the first one, but I'll need to carve through a few nights to get through the second and the third ones. When we were replanning the Enemy Within campaign, so that was Graham Davis and I, we sat down and we went through a whole chunk of the novels, and Graham gave me a lovely little anecdote about the Conrad novels and how little they were liked by the studio at the time, because they thought they were, well, I won't use the disparaging remarks that Graham used, but needless to say, when I suggested to Graham that some of the content from those novels could impact into the Enemy Within, he was deeply disapproving. Having said that, though, when we eventually moved on to the Horned Rat, there was a plot thread that we lifted from that and ported over. I'm not sure it hit the final books, though, so that's a plot thread that you will find in LAWhammer when we get to that section. How's it gone this time?
A bit better.
Are you happy with them this time?
I think my fellowship is now 27.
Okay, that's
which is almost as high as
that's
it could
17,
be.
Yeah.
My ballistic skills 32.
Decent.
Which is the lowest I've rolled, but it's not terrible.
No, it's not terrible. It's
The
12.
best I got was 39 the first time round. In terms of things that are important, my dexterity is only 19.
Ooh, that's pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the best. But again, you've got an opportunity here if you wish to do a couple of swaps if you want, or we could just roll again. And there is nothing wrong with rolling again. Don't feel bad. I'm fully aware that this could happen. It's one of the reasons why we have questions.
Also, I've taken this time to roll up another friend, and this time I'm a noble human Stirlander who has the most average stat you've ever seen in your life. They're literally all 31, 32, 29, or 30.
Okay, I'm going to ask.
I've got two on the go now.
I'm going to ask the chat, should I roll again?
Yes.
Hey chat, do you think Erin should roll again? She's unsure whether she's done enough for her character. What do you think? And while they're making up their choices as to the answer, the very first one was yes, yes, roll, says Portrait.
I feel like this is the one we should have
says yes. Everyone says yes. Just roll.
It should be map cam. It should be roll cam.
It should be
roll
dice
cam.
cam.
Dice cam.
Oh, we'll do that for next time, because we have our new map cam just literally sitting over the table just now, and it's not being used as map cam yet because I've got to get a new strap to go across. You don't see the big iron frames that we have to either side.
It's
we
very
have iron
industrial.
frames that make the place feel a bit industrial when you're in here.
Okay,
and we
there we
don't
go.
have
Better roll.
the necessary frame to put the camera where it needs to be. So it's currently sitting
that's
over there.
your
We could
first-
totally have
Yeah,
a
I
dice
know.
cam.
But it might be.
We'll know that for
it's-
next
yeah.
time.
That's her first max. Two times.
Oh, she rolled her first max!
Okay.
Anyone
Come
who-
on, everyone. Oh.
Anyone who's played the original Baldur's Gate knows exactly how long you should keep rolling your characters for.
Reroll.
19.
So many happy yeses, by the way.
This is when we need dice cam.
Yes.
Okay, Wolf King
That's amazing.
2540 says, how many acute senses can you have for a character? As many as you can get your bloody hands on. It's worth noting, though, that in the LAWhammer version, if you go check
11.
our talent list, you can get them. All of our talents are available over on our blog if you haven't checked that already. You can take acute senses multiple times as well. So do go check out how we use talents, because it's ever so slightly different. Yeah, I can imagine a scaly killing machine with a plan and without remorse in LAWhammer, says, yeah, well, so can I actually. Bloombo? I'm going with Bloombo. Stump pops in. I found out a lot of chaotic blood traits from my own table. Brilliant. By ripping divine marks from the Tome of Salvation. I wrote a good chunk of those, so yeah, I know the divine marks very well. And from a few other 2E sources, which I also wrote. I saw a lot of divine stuff already in there, so I suppose it's a bit saturated, but it's been serviceable for my game. It's a really good place to get an idea. We've slowly but surely eradicated many of certain types of modifiers from our game, which is generally the pluses of a variety of kinds. You might notice if you look through
this
the
is
chaotic
Dex.
blood that they only add certain
Dex,
types.
okay,
So many
so
of the divine traits are
plus
slightly
30.
different than how we've done it.
So,
Any more questions before I move down?
15.
46.
Stump
46,
says he's seen his dad roll at least 40 times in a row for the PS4 ports. Only 40 times.
Only
Your dad
40.
is an amateur.
Your dad is an absolute amateur.
The original Baldur's Gate, I remember once, I might have rolled
That's
the
all high anyway.
stats for maybe about half a day.
Yeah, we can't even talk about the number of times we rolled. We're now into like measuring it in portions of days. Legit.
This has been much better, everyone.
This has been amazing. This has
This
been
would
a
be
really
good.
good roll.
But this is the fellowship
Yeah, but you
one.
can always swap this one.
True.
Smiling Limpet goes, half a day? What? Well, Mark McGranahan goes, word.
I want everyone in chat to chant. This is the fellowship one.
Fellowship! Fellowship! Fellowship!
Come on, you can do it.
10.
You can swap it.
I'm going to do
This is the best set of rolls so far, and you've already not getting your XP. So
Okay.
you
I'll
can
need to
just-
figure out
yeah.
a piece of way of
Totally.
writing it. But yeah, okay, so if I take one of the big ones, I can swap something that I don't really need to worry
Just
too much.
take the weapon skill.
My weapon
It's
skill was
max.
20, yeah, so I swap the weapon skill.
Perfect.
And that
That'll
gives
give
you
me-
max
So that'll give,
30.
that'll give me 30, and then that drops down that one to, that was only 10, so that makes it 40. Okay,
Lovely.
okay, so we got there eventually.
So, now let's go through your attributes so we can find out where you are.
Okay. Weapon skill, 40.
Ooh.
And that was with a, well, that's with a, just a 10.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
50.
It was 50.
Oh, yeah, that would be much better.
Yeah,
The ooh
but I
was
want
misplaced
fellowship.
there because that's only
That
10.
was a human ooh.
Excuse me, I'm going to dial it back. Ooh.
More dwarf.
Carry on.
Ballistic skill, 39.
Ooh.
Strength, 31.
Mm-hmm.
Toughness, 45.
Handy. 15.
Initiative, 29.
Decent.
Toughness is plus 30. So.
So not handy.
Yeah, not right.
No, it wasn't the toughness one, it was the one after toughness.
Sorry.
Um,
Initiative.
Initiative, 29. Agility, 18.
Mm-hmm.
Dexterity, 46.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
Intelligence, 36.
Mm-hmm.
Willpower, 54.
Ooh.
And Fellowship, 30. Only took
Fellowship. 30.
It only took 30. 30.
Boom, shika, what?
Only took 5 rerolls. 4 rerolls. And do I
That's
get
nothing.
any bonus XP from that, even though I
You do
swapped
not.
one? No, I didn't think so. I've so far got. I have
do not.
I have plus 10.
Right, so there's a couple of other things that we note here. We could calculate the wounds right now, which is how much damage you can sustain in combat, but we won't do that until
Okay.
we've finished off the rest of your skills, talents, and
Okay.
pushed everything else in, because that, pardon me, that might influence your wounds.
Okay.
The next thing though is you do get your movement. That's how fast you move. In our game, movement just equates to how far you move in squares when we're moving around on a battle map. So with movement 3, you move 3 squares, which is what a dwarf has. Movement 3.
Yes.
Okay, so you pop that in. A human has movement 4. But you can always do things like special actions where you run or you sprint or you charge or whatever else, and that allows you to move more squares. So in your case, you've got movement 3. You mark that down.
Yes.
And the last one is your fate. This is, for those of you who follow Warhammer and don't necessarily know the rules, this is your extra lives. This is Mario gaining his extra life. Boing, boing, boing.
In the current game, I've seen a lot of that happening recently.
So your fate points are essential. They also determine your fortune points. So this is your re-rolls through the course of the game.
Okay.
And you have a number of fortune points equal to your fate points. Dwarves get fewer fate points than humans get 2. So they start with 2, where humans start with an almighty 4. Now, there's a big difference with fate in LAWhammer to how it works in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which is worth briefly discussing before we move on. Because you'll notice that there is a stat completely missing here, which is resilience and resolve. They don't exist in the LAWhammer version of the rules. Everything that resilience and resolve does inside Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 is handled by fate and fortune inside LAWhammer. So if you're wondering what fate does on top, or wondering where resolve and resilience have gone, just smoosh them together and you pretty much have your answer. Our version of fate does another couple of things as well, which we've discussed during the stream as we've played. Calling in cavalries and doing all sorts of fun things as we progress through the game as well. They are, however, a very finite supply. So when you run out of those, you can then die.
Unless the goblin gives you treasure.
Oh, unless you get yourself a goblin gift.
Yeah.
There is also, however, one other thing you can do in LAWhammer that you can't do inside the basic set, and that's that you can spend a fate point during character creation to get more XP. But we'll get to that later. It's for those who want to create more experienced characters. So you've lived for a bit longer, but that comes at the cost of losing one of your fate points, which you've clearly lost during your previous travels. That allows you to, for example, right from the outset go, I don't want to just play a neophyte. I want to play an established baker, goddammit. Not just a basic baker. I'm not an apprentice. No. There's also one other thing that's worth noting about LAWhammer over the basic rules of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which we'll get to a bit later in terms of the impact of it. In fact, we'll get to that when we go on to careers and using those careers and moving out of those careers using the XP. Because the LAWhammer, all the little XP bonuses you get, adds up to enough XP to complete your career. It doesn't inside the basic rulebook. It used to in the first draft, but because of iterations that came through the course of development, it meant you could no longer complete your first career with the XP you get. In the LAWhammer version, you absolutely can. Right, so just to make sure you understand everything you've got, your weapon skill is your ability to hit people in the face. Your ballistic skill is your ability to throw things in people's faces, or alternatively, at targets, if you are so discerning. Your strength is your ability to lift up stuff and apply force to other things. Your toughness is your ability to soak damage and also deal with external issues like disease. For example, your initiative, going through my head there, initiative. Your initiative is your speed of thought and your reactions. Your agility, by comparison, is your ability to move with gross motor movements, dive out of the way of things. Your dexterity is your fine manipulative dexterity, so you might not be agile, but you might be very good at working on things, or alternatively, the exact opposite. You might be very agile, but really clumsy-fingered. Your intelligence is how smart you are, how much knowledge you can keep inside your brain. Your willpower is how, well, you're a dwarf, your willpower is going to be very high, I presume. Your willpower is how stubborn you are, your overall ability to have courage and keep your place. And finally, your fellowship is just how well you can convey what you want to other people. And it's a low fellowship. It doesn't necessarily mean you're grumpy. It doesn't necessarily mean you're mean. It doesn't necessarily mean you're bad. It just means that something you do makes other people not listen to you or not want to listen to you, or alternatively, you smell.
Or you're quiet.
You're quiet, sure.
Is it a little bit akin to, say, charisma you might find in other games?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, there's something else worth noticing for each one of your stats and is worth mentioning now, and that's your characteristic bonuses. In Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 and LAWhammer, we use characteristic bonuses. We use them much more in LAWhammer than they use in the core game, but we still use the same basic rule, which is, if you want to know your characteristic bonus, you take the tens number of your stat.
Okay.
That's it. So if your stat's 31, your characteristic bonus is 3. So your strength bonus will be, what's your strength?
My strength is 31, so 3.
3, okay, and if you were rolling for damage, you would add 3.
Okay.
Because your strength bonus is 3. Okay, so let's flip that over and go toughness. What's your toughness bonus?
45, so 4.
4, okay, and that's what you take off from incoming damage.
Okay.
So if someone did 10 damage to you, you'd take 4 off it, you'd take 6 damage. You'll notice that you're not as strong as you are tough. Classic dwarf stuff. Okay, all very well and good. Willpower bonus might be used for a variety of stopping spell damage coming in LAWhammer at least. Your fellowship bonus is used to affect how many different people you can interact with at once. Some skills, for example, you can intimidate your fellowship bonus worth of people. Okay, so you just go up to them and use your fellowship bonus to intimidate more than one rather than just a single individual. Each of your stats, their bonuses are used for a variety of different things, which is worth mentioning. Wounds we'll discuss later. Fate points we have discussed already. So our next one is step 4. Skills and talents. Right, so skills and talents we have completely changed. There's no other way of putting it. So the idea of skills and talents is identical to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. No change at all. So if you're out there going, so are you doing skills differently and talents differently? No, we've just changed the rules for all of them. Every single skill we have basically rewritten to our needs, and every single talent we have rewritten to our needs. On top of that, we have dropped some skills and completely replaced or changed or otherwise updated every single talent. Now, the skills part aren't over on the LAWhammer blog, but the talents part are. So if you want to go over to the LAWhammer blog right now, just type in talents into the search blog over on Patreon, you will find our talent list just sitting there, and you can go through and listen to what they're saying and understand the talents that they're using. Alternatively, you could just listen, because I'm sure Lindsay's going to explain a good chunk of these. So your skills and talents to begin with, you get access to them from 2 places. Place number 1, your species. In fact, your heritage in particular, where you come from. In your case, it will be the Imperial Dwarf skills and talents. So if you go through that little page there, you will find on page, I think it's 17
It's
probably?
18.
Is it 18? No, it's 17 for the Imperial Dwarf.
For Imperial Dwarf, sorry.
Okay, so Imperial Dwarf, and it gives you a list of skills and a list of talents. Now, these are very similar to the list of skills and talents that you'll find inside Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. It's just we've just changed what skills and talents are available to match what we think they should have. It's also worth noting that we've got human heritages for tons of other places as well. Offline, not in the document they've got, I've got Bretonia covered, Kislev covered, because I'm using all of that stuff for building a lot of my NPCs in the background. So in your case, you take the Imperial Dwarf one, and you'll see that there's a list of 12 there. Now, some of those lists have ors on them. So you can choose one or t'other, from your list of 12.
For example, I've got lore, geology, or metallurgy.
Correct. And some of them have got any. In fact, some of the skills have got an italic section in brackets. That means you choose it. So where it says lore local, that means you know lore from somewhere that you think that you've stomped around.
Okay, so
if you could, for example, take, if you decided that your dwarf had been stomping around Reichland, you could say lore Reichland.
Well, I can bring in a little character background to influence this. So my grandpa, engineers travelled all the world, but he was particularly fond of Ireland.
Oh, was he?
So
our Talabicland.
So Talabicland would make sense if we're going to go for Warhammer Ireland.
Absolutely. Right, I'll be coming to the comments again in a second once I've explained exactly how their skills work, and then I'll be jumping through all the comments.
What kind of scholar do you think he would have been friends with?
My grandpa you're talking about. Here's a weird thing about my grandpa. Like, he was proud that he had never read a book, but he had read a lot of instruction manuals. He understood how everything worked, but he'd never read a book, and he was weirdly proud of that.
That's okay. No, I
don't know how you want to take that.
So, how many points do you get? For your skills, you've got 40 points to assign.
Okay.
And each one of your skills, which Lindsay's going to be telling you about so that I don't need to go through each one, is associated with one of your attributes. So, for example, Intimidate is directly related to your strength. Your Cool, your ability to be full of courage, is directly related to your willpower. So if you took Cool and added 5, you take your willpower, and if you took 5 points of Cool, it would be your willpower plus 5. That'd be the number you have.
Okay.
So your willpower is currently?
My willpower is 54.
54. So if you added 5 points, your Cool would be 59.
Okay.
Nice and easy.
Okay.
So you've got 40 points to spend across the 12 skills that are listed there.
Okay, so first we need to go through, obviously, because some of them are or.
Indeed. So there's a couple of rules here that's worth saying. And you may notice that our numbers are ever so slightly different to the numbers you get in Fantasy Roleplay 4. That's because, well, they are. You can't allocate more than 10 points to any one single skill at this point.
Sorry, did you say 40 points?
I did say 40 points.
We're on heritage skills and talents, so we get 3
Oh, sorry, you're right.
we get 3.
I was
So
about
in
to
the
do
heritage,
I was about to do careers.
in the heritage skills and talents, you get
I
3
wrote this.
at
You
5
totally know that.
and 3 at 3.
I mean,
So you're picking 6 of those skills,
I'm just
3
gonna
of them
hang
to
my
have
head
at
in shame
5
over
and
here.
3 of them to have at
So,
3.
to reiterate that, ignore everything I just said there. You get to choose 3 of those skills to add plus 5 to, and 3 of those skills to add
So I'm going
plus
to write them
5
all
to.
down and then beside them.
Went back to front.
And this is like what he was before he became an engineer. So this is
Okay.
how I think, this is his heritage. Like when he was growing up, what was his life like? And what kind of things did he do with his family?
As I hide my head in shame over here, I'm going to quickly run through the comments. Are there any special careers for gnomes in LAWhammer? Yes, there are. There's a bunch of them. The Dwaro Guard, for example, from Glim Dwaro, who are experts in dark magic and Ulgu. We've got ourselves a special peddler career. It's not actually peddler, a special jester career, which is designed with them in mind. In the same way, we have a special chef career for the halflings. They've got their own names in their own language. In the case of the gnomes, it's in Gassily. In the case of the halflings, it's in Hafen. So yes, we do. Can you learn talents from other party members? You, under normal circumstances, cannot, under any circumstance, do that. It requires you to have a special downtime activity to do that. And that's both in LAWhammer and in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. We, however, have complete set of rules for learning skills from other PCs. We even have a talent for teaching skills to other people called, I think it's tutor or teacher or something like that. I can't recall. It's in the talent list. You'll be able to find it if you want to go look it up. And you'll see how it works because it's got the core bit there. But the actual rules for teaching skills is in the skill sections for our, in the career sections, pardon me, from our rules. Dan wants a dice cam specifically for Lindsay. A new map cam could probably focus on our dice. Yeah, quite. It'd be a faff to make it move properly, though. Yeah, it would. But although the camera has got a remote control where it can move around stage, so it can be done. Any chance we'll get to see the skill doc sometime? Eventually, yeah. It's half written because there's parts of it I don't like. But I'm in a position where I think the skills are in a good place. And Erin looks like she's got a question.
No, I'm just listening to you there. I'm just waiting.
Have you done your 3+5s? Your
No, I'm now
3+3s?
about to pick my skills so I can then assign them because.
Yep.
So how many I pick from the skills?
You've got 12 skills.
Mhm.
Okay, 6 of them you can choose.
Okay.
And 3 can get +5, and 3 can get +3.
Okay, so that's just time to kind of figure out what makes sense.
What makes sense for him growing up?
Lower. So Lord Metallurgy makes more sense as an engineer.
No, but he's an engineer. So this is for his background.
Yeah.
So if he was taught that by his parents, then I would pick Lord Metallurgy. Otherwise, I'd take it later in a career. So yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
okay.
It won't be later in the career, so take it now.
So take it now.
Okay,
Yeah,
take it now. So
absolutely.
let's. Okay, so we'll get.
Cash Laughter comes in and says, I have a lore question here about some player characters as a GM. How lore accurate are the following character ideas? Well, let's find out.
What's drive?
A shape-shifting
Driving a
construct,
cart.
oh my goodness,
Oh, you would need to
intended
know
to
that, how
host
to do that.
Isha instead of Ariel.
Okay, so
Another Be'lakor spawn.
I don't think Melee
Dark
important
Elf.
to him.
Be'lakor manipulates him to give him minor powers akin to an Arian's God-blazed extras.
Stealth.
High
doesn't
Elf
make
archaeologist who
sense.
eventually awakens the dragons with his Caledorian bloodline
So,
after studying Lizarman history, like Mazdamundai and Tehenowin impassioning the Lizarman. So all of those could be done, and I'm sure that a good writer would make
Cool
some of those
doesn't make
stories
sense,
really
really.
good,
You don't
and
think
for
he's
your
a threatening
table,
character?
it might come out perfectly.
Cool.
They are
How
all
cool you are on
also
the so as an
very
engineer,
difficult
Oh,
to
yeah,
do
probably.
well
Pretty cool.
and sound like
Okay.
Because
they
his
fit
stuff
the
might
background
So it's whether or
really
not
well.
I wanna
So
keep
my
things
answer
like
is,
evaluate
yeah,
training.
they could
Evaluate working out
completely
how much
work in
insult,
every single case.
which could be useful.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll shut
seems
while
like-
they're talking. They're discussing.
We're
their
we're
characters now.
debating this character. Like what's his background? We're just trying to figure it out. We don't think he's a stealthy guy.
Yeah, makes sense. Smile Olympic says no 5 free characteristic advances in Lawhammer rules. We'll get to that soon.
Okay.
Sweden says, good to see you. Oh, that's not us.
trade any
Will
of
this
the
come to
groups.
YouTube?
Yeah,
Asked
he's
Rob
like an
Madil. Yes,
administrative.
it will.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing an edit of this video and popping up on YouTube a little bit later. When we're finished this one, Erin,
And Lord Television.
our Corner Goblin,
Yeah.
we'll be
That's
going through the
cool.
entire
Okay,
video
yeah,
and
so
adding in
just
all
pick
the
which
extra
ones
goodies
want
throughout
that
the
are,
course of it so that it
the
makes
top
hopefully a bit
ones
more
and which
sense.
ones are the five.
Okay. So
AJ Cruisen comes in, it says teacher.
So
I
process
couldn't
that.
remember the talent. So the talent that
so
allows you
say
to
lore
teach other
methodology
people
maybe should be a
new
bigger
skills
one.
is called
So was it
teacher.
A five.
Night True says, any thoughts on campaigns with PCs all
Treat
from the
the
same
same.
class? I think it works perfectly well.
maybe
Indeed,
evaluate that.
I've run entire campaigns where everyone was wizards or
And
everyone
then
was
so
nobles. Not just the
Three.
same class, but the same career. You'll also find that in
So you just
Warhammer,
need to pick
we
what
don't
trait
have
you'll
class
ask.
as a career-defining concept. It's just completely gone, so it's not in there.
So
Make
we,
your choices.
with the aid of Lindsay, if you want anyone to know, I sometimes refer to Lindsay as Game Mum.
Game Mom?
Game Mum.
It's true.
She's my Game Mum.
Although I really look like her older sister.
I think younger sister, let's be honest. Anyway,
You need to move over so that you keep on
Sorry.
doing this and dipping out when you look at your screen. Move
Oh,
your
I'll
screen
move
round.
my screen.
Yeah, move your screen round. That'd be great.
so the skills I've picked are cool,
Cool.
evaluate,
Evaluate.
drive,
Drive.
lore Talabecland,
Lord Tyler Bickland.
lore metallurgy,
Lord Metallurgy.
and trade any I need to pick.
So
what
what sort of thing do you think has been made?
like gadgets and stuff.
Okay, so that's
Like-
trade engineering.
Trade engineering, which
Yes,
makes
trade
sense.
engineering. Right, so they're now about to move on to their talents that they get from their heritage. And their talents are, broadly speaking, handled in exactly the same way that they're handled in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. It's just that they have slightly different mixes of options. So, for example, our dwarf, I'm actually just going to run straight over to our dwarf, has got the choice of Acute Sense Touch, which they start with. And you'll find that I will change this later because I've changed the rules the way that acute senses work in our games. Originally, this was put in because all dwarves have just got a better sense of touch. That was basically saying that all dwarves are being compared to humans, like somehow humans are a standard. We've removed this. Now it's acute sense gives you a more acute sense in comparison to the rest of your species, not in comparison to humans. So all elves effectively have the equivalent of acute sense hearing. All of them in our game, but they don't have the talent. If they take their talent acute sense hearing, they've got acute sense hearing in that they hear things that other elves don't hear. So our rules have got rules for each of the species that say they're better at this, 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 and this. They don't even get talents for that. That's just what their species does. It's no longer just based on human as a standard. Each one of the species is their own standard. That being the case, though, we're still just running with the rules as they're presented here. So your first option is acute sense touch, which you just write down.
Just for my skills, I've gone for things I think will complement.
Okay.
So I've gone for lower right gland, you've got Talibet gland. Language wastelander, because I figure she or he may have been up and down the rank. Evaluate for checking, which you've got too, but that's fine. We're both in the business of haggle, melee brawling, and charm, because she's a bit, maybe likes a bit of a fight.
Love it.
Or he, or they.
Someone.
Can't decide yet.
We'll figure it out together.
You'll get there.
I'm going to randomise it.
Your other options, just so we get them, magic resistance, which you just take. Night vision, which you just take. Our dwarves tend to have very fixed versions of what they are. Read, write, or sturdy. So you can read, write, or you're particularly sturdy. Okay. Lindsay can go through these talents and tell you what each one of them means. Next one after that is sturdy. Next one after that is relentless. All dwarves get relentless. And then you get 2 random ones. And if you want to find the random table, you'll find it on page 16.
Okay, if there's any there you don't know, tell me them and I'll read them out for you.
Okay, acute sense touch makes sense. Magic resistance makes sense. Night vision makes sense. Read and write sense.
Where's your card from, by the way, Lindsay?
This one, right client.
What does relentless mean?
Right client.
Pardon?
Relentless.
Relentless. Let me go down to it.
I have a feeling I'm making the friendliest dwarf that's ever appeared in LAWhammer.
Max agility bonus. Nothing gets in your way. You ignore plus relentless death zone squares when you charge. This means talents like reaction strike do not activate, as you do not count as passing through the death zone squares. So if you're charging a guy over
Let me
there.
explain this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, every single character in our game has got what's called a death zone. Dun, dun, dun! The death zone is, if you're just a standard character sitting on a square, the 8 squares around you. And whenever someone passes through that, you get to chop them in the head. That's what happens. But you've got relentless, which means if someone passes through, if you pass through someone else's death zone, you can just push them aside and keep on going without them getting strikes upon you.
Okay.
Okay, so relentless allows you to go through death zone squares without them activating effectively.
Okay. So in terms of these talents, do I just get all of these, or does another picking situation?
No, you only get, if there's a choice, you choose between them. Other than that, you just get them all.
Okay, so yeah, you just get all of those, and then this is 2 random.
Unless the 2 random, correct. And there's one that's sturdy or read write. So you can choose.
I would think read write makes more sense for my character.
I agree. Although having said that, though, it's worth noting that's also in your career. So you could choose it later. So you could have an extra sturdy right at the beginning if you wanted to show that he's pretty broad back. Have you read the sturdy talent out?
Nope.
Right, so do that.
Requested to yet.
While they're checking that up, I'll take a quick look over at the comments. Would that make Andy Dungeon Daddy, says Shwedin. Oh, for goodness sake.
I think if we're going to go down there, just Game Daddy.
Game Daddy.
Game Daddy.
It doesn't sound better.
Our communal grouping is very.
That's certainly a thing.
Sturdy, right. You are made of sturdy stuff, allowing you to carry far more than others might expect.
Can that make sense for you?
Increase the number of encumbrance points you can carry by your sturdy times 2.
Okay, so that
we're getting a real sense of this character. The random talents are linguistics and mimic twice.
Oh, wow, okay. That's working quite well.
Clearly a perfect entertainer.
Lumo comes in.
So you're about entertainer.
If
he stayed clear from a normal dwarf, try to pass as a normal dwarf in human society, for example, by pretending to be a slayer or explaining their strange tendencies. Right, there's a difference between a corrupted dwarf and a chaos dwarf. A corrupted dwarf is a dwarf from the standard clans of the imperial dwarfs that have perhaps fallen off the rails for one reason or another. And absolutely, they can. Chaos dwarves are a different species. For want of a better description, they have giant tusks. They don't look human, nor would they, not human, they don't look dwarfy in the same way that other dwarves do, nor do they want to. And this is an important part. Just because someone can do a thing doesn't mean they will do a thing. I'm going to presume there's a host of things that you could do right now walking down the street that you wouldn't do because it's societally unacceptable for you to do these things. Let your imagination run wild. Now, go over to a society where those are acceptable and there are also things that you just don't like doing. They're not the first things you're going to want to do. You'll try to squeeze in your own way. No. So Chaos Dwarves are chaos dwarves. They don't stop around trying to pretend to be dwarves. So broadly speaking, the answer is no, but there is always a way to try and get through these things with some crazy examples. The second anyone says no to Warhammer, a writer 3 weeks later comes along and says, look what I've done. I've made that happen.
Read and write or sturdy and then sturdy. So does that mean
You
sturdy?
can take sturdy
You
more
can
than
take
once.
sturdy
Okay,
more than
so
once.
okay, so just take read and write and sturdy.
Yeah, shape,
Yeah.
read, and write.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
he reads instruction manuals.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah,
yes, of course.
instructions.
Yeah, doesn't read books, but reads
And
instructions.
I've got linguistics and other languages, so I'm going to be translating those instruction manuals
Yeah.
for you. I've got a question.
Yes.
If you roll over the chaotic blood table, do you just roll it again?
Just roll again,
And
yes.
what about if it was 888?
Regardless, you roll again. Brasswing says, how does size affect damage? Go check the size rules in the back of the rulebook if you want the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay way of doing it.
And I need to roll
The
2 rounds.
Warhammer LAWhammer version of doing it is a completely different kettle of fish. Potrak says, just shortened it to Dandy.
Hang on.
Oh no, Daddy Andy. Dandy.
We need to
Oh,
say we
man.
need to deal with this. I think people are gonna
No.
if we don't nip it in the bud, then this is just gonna get very. Wrong.
He was being.
I usually just refer to Andy as Andy, but we're
Yeah, Andy's just Andy.
Andy's just
Dark
Andy.
Eyes
I sometimes
Spy.
call him boss.
Could yes, you do.
I sometimes
Yeah,
could
you
a
never-
vegan vegetarian ogre work? No. Rejecting the Great Maw, not living inside the ogre kingdoms? No, they would die of hunger. There's almost no chance an ogre would be able to get enough inside them to exist in a way that didn't mean that they just never moved. Ogres absorb an extraordinary amount of energy, which they do so through meat, and it's a little bit like saying, could I have a human that only subsisted off of stones? And the answer is no, but ogres can subsist off stones to a degree. They eat stones to help their digestion process. Ogres do lots of things that other species don't do, and ogres need meat. It's a core component not just of their culture, but of their physiology.
Good for them.
Without meat, they have extreme problems. Now, could that mean you could create a meat substitute through some methods or another, allowing them to no longer need meat? Yeah, sure. But in the same way that vampires need blood, yet stories talk about blood substitutes,
31.
ogres, broadly speaking, need meat.
Lightning reflexes.
Yeah,
That's
no.
plus
They're
5
a bit
agility.
too big to subsist on
Plus
just
5.
herbivory things and not just be lumbering slow creatures that go down the roots
Initiative,
of
I think.
elephants. They would have to be
Make more
eating
sense.
pretty much non-stop all day,
Yeah.
eating, and nothing else. They turn into panda bears, but even worse examples of them. And their stomachs just aren't designed for that. Could they
So I need
digest
to
it? Yes.
add
Get much
still
energy
to
from
that
it?
story.
Not really.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, you
Um,
do.
so-
Yeah.
Anyway, either as a
me
lone
too.
individual being influenced by some non-ogre philosophy from where they live, or potentially even a whole community of ogres who have chosen to reject them all. Rejecting them all is not the same as rejecting meat. It's ogres can't reject their hunger in the same way that we as people can't reject that we need to eat. We all eat, and they also do. But their form of eating does sadly focus not just around the flesh, but the bones, stones, and anything else they can get into their giant maws. And even that is often not enough. They would be, in some hypothetical world where this was the case, extremely skinny versions of ogres who were sickly, relatively poorly. I can't see how it would come to pass, but I'm sure you could write a story for it if you desperately wish to do so.
I've got my 2 random ones as well.
Yes, what did you get?
Perfect pitch.
Oh, interesting.
I think that works. And lightning.
Got a good voice.
Yeah, lightning reflexes.
Is that
Lightning reflex is
initiative
lovely.
or agility?
So, pardon?
Lightning reflex.
It's your initiative.
That's-
Yeah.
Okay.
Sharp is initiative. It's your agility.
Yeah.
Threw me there. It's your agility.
I've rolled Renald's honor for the
Okay, so
chaotic
it was a
blood
corrupted on purpose dwarf, not chaos dwarf. Then yeah, that dwarf could do the same that any mutant or other corrupted individual could do whilst within their society. Indeed, there's several books where there are dwarves who have either been corrupted or fallen to one of the dark gods for one reason or another. It is exceedingly rare, though, in a way that it's not rare with humanity. It just doesn't happen all that often because dwarves are particularly strong-willed. But they are not, and I think this is very important to stress, they are not in any way immune to chaos. Indeed, chaos affects them relatively badly. Magic, for example, turns them to stone. They are not your standard dwarves that you find over in other settings. But yes, they can fall. It's 5 or 1d10 to agility. Yeah, good point. Did you check that? for the talent. Our talent is 5 or 1d10.
we okay.
It's not just +5. You choose.
So
5
you
or
either
1d10.
take +5 or 1. Or
Thanks for calling that one out, Potrek.
For lightning reflexes, which gives you +5 to your agility, it doesn't anymore. It gives you either
Correct.
+5 or +1d10.
And
so
indeed,
you can either take the safety or just.
I'm going to call out Lindsay. Every talent, check it. Even if you think you know it, check it.
Should I
Because
roll?
often they're not what you expect.
Should I roll or just take the 5?
That's up to you. Or is that what does the chat think? Should she roll for the extra potential or the loss, or should she just take the +5? Cautious, not cautious. Potrak says, always roll. It is the way. Roll. Brasswing, roll. Yeah, lots of rolls.
10!
Lovely, 10.
Okay,
wow.
and
Worth it.
so that means my initiative is now no longer quite shit. It's actually quite good.
That's pretty decent.
No, your agility.
My agility.
Sorry, I told you the wrong one.
Okay. No, my agility is now not quite as shit.
Good.
My statement stands.
Other talents that you wanted to... I've got linguistics. You have an ear for language. You can choose to automatically pass any language mundane tests with plus linguistic successes without rolling. You can test as normal if you wish to score more. And mimic, which is... you are an excellent mimic. You can replicate any accent you know. You can also replicate specific voices you know with an entertain acting test.
Okay, in my head, it was more like, it was more like an octopus who just kind of coils up and suddenly becomes a rock. So it's just the person who just goes like this.
No,
or
voice,
it's like,
voice mimic.
Or it's like, what do you call it? Frodo and stuff under the cloak, which is like, that really was very well done in terms of a props department.
Alrighty. Career path and talents.
Yeah.
Are we ready? Find your career path in your careers. Go to the very first one. In your case, it's just the engineer career, the one that you've got there, hopefully.
The wee one you sent me.
Yep, indeed. And you'll find a list of skills and talents available there. You can allocate 40 advances to any of the skills that you prefer. That's what I said earlier.
Yeah.
But no skill can get more than 10 points. And you can also advance one of the talents. You might want to know what each of the talents does first.
I understand what that means by advancing.
Okay, so that just means, if you remember with the skills, you've got 3 of them at +5 and 3 of them at +3. So each you've now got 40 extra advances. So if you added 5 onto one that had +3, you now have +8. If you added 10 onto one that had +5, you now have +15 in that skill. So if you had a skill that was based on, say, your strength, and your strength was 14, you added 15, that skill would now be 55.
Okay.
So Lindsay will keep you right on how many points and where to spend them. And there was the question about the attributes, which we're going to have to get to as well, because we didn't do our characteristic bonus. Because you're right, I didn't do that earlier.
I also now have drive twice.
Nice.
No.
Well, you don't need to take it, because you've already taken it how many times?
Well, I've got drive 3.
So you could add some more points to it if you wish to do so. You've got 40 points that you can spread across with it. So you currently have 3. If you add another 5 points to it, you'd have it 8. If you add 7 points to it, you'd have it +10.
Okay.
And your drive is based off your dexterity. Have you given Erin all of these skills and what they're based off of, Lindsay?
No.
You will need to do that.
Because she's got the character sheet, so...
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we've been working to get it all together so we can do it all together. And what is an ancient language? What does that mean?
It means, like today, learning Latin or Greek,
So,
a language that isn't spoken by
in your case, it would
country
probably be
anymore.
classical because you live in the Empire. So we're about to hit a big rule change for how we do things in LAWhammer. It's the reason why I skipped this, which is the characteristic side. I was wanting them to get on into the depths of their career before we did it. In Fantasy Roleplay 4, you get to choose one of the characteristic advances from your career. Every career starts with 3 characteristic advances available, where you get yourself so many advances to make one of your attributes better, your strength, your weapon skill, or whatever. We changed that completely, and I shall tell you exactly the rule. For the find the entry for your career path in careers. Reference your career's advanced scheme and find the 3 characteristics marked with the cross. You can then allocate 15 advances across these 3 characteristics, with no more than 10 advances assigned to a single characteristic. So that's a full 3 times what the core rules offer. Because the intent for the entirety of this is to give you enough to not just complete your basic career, but to make you feel like you've actually completed it. So you could drop a few extra points in it before you have to then move on and potentially leave. But yes, you can take up to 15 advances from the ones that are marked as crosses. Can you explain that to Erin when she gets there on the characteristics?
I've got, so cross ones I have are ballistic skill, dexterity, and intellect.
Intelligence. Perfect.
Yep.
So you can add up to plus 15 to those 3. You could just, to make it easy, you could just add 5 to each. Or alternatively, you could single one out for plus 10 and give another one plus 5. Is entirely up to you. While we're doing that, I shall now dive back into the chat just to see if there's anything. Hey Andy, you asked me to remind you about the skill competency in regard to their level when they came up. Yes, I did, the bloke person. Thank you very much for bringing it back up again. So in our game, we have a table for your score competencies and how good that means you are in comparison to the rest of the Empire. I don't have it sitting in front of me, so I can't just happily copy-paste it. But what I will do is I will paste that up inside a nice little skill posty thing. Because I did the same with talent some time ago. I'll post one of those over so you can have a look at it to get an idea of what the skills mean in terms of the overall area, because we use this for our talents too. Loosely speaking, 30 is pretty damn good. More than 30 starts becoming very expensive in terms of XP. But that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of people who have those competencies out there in the Empire. There are. And for those out there who believe that getting more than plus 40 or even plus 50 in the skill should be rare, you're right, it should be. But as is often the case, those who study and study hard in one area will have those skills sometimes at that height. In our game, there are a variety of characters who have got skills well over 100 at various levels. Have you got a question there? You're looking like you're flicking backwards and forwards.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, I'm just been writing notes down of all the skills and talents I've got.
Good.
So there's a few that I now have double from getting both. So like I have, I have drive twice. I have trade any twice, so I can take another trade area.
Okay, so what you do is you assign a number of points. It's not so much twice. Okay, so
it just means I can apply
you've
numbers
got
twice.
40 points to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got those 40 points to just spread out amongst whichever skills.
Because I've already got trade engineering, and then I've got trade engineering again, so I can apply it again. And then I've got another trade.
So basically, at the moment, you've got trade engineering at 5.
I'll check the comments.
So you've got 40 points. So you could add
and more.
Up to 10 more to trade engineering to be trade engineering 15, or you could just leave it at 5 and add it to something else.
And I'm just thinking, like, I've got a trade any, so I've got another one.
Yes, you could take another trade.
So you
could be, for example, capable of carpentry or capable of working metals, making jewelry. You could be anything you can make. If
that's something
to make, you could add that on. At the moment, he's more of a tinkerer who is working on engineering things and building contraptions and interesting little puppets and toys. Or whatever it is that he is working with his entertainment on.
I don't know if we can fly this somewhere, but it'd just be funny. My grandpa specialised in engineering and industrial plasma cutters. I'm trying. How can we adapt that concept to something that makes sense?
That would move beyond engineering by itself under normal circumstances.
Let's just strip it back to what could that be?
Not sure. Think
trade
that one on that one.
Guns or
if
something?
Anyone out there's got a good idea for where that could sit, but you can definitely work on trade gunsmithing.
Yeah, that would kind of be the closest thing I can think of.
Yeah, I like that. So, Bloomble says, bigger species like ogres or giants are often described as fighting mostly in pure force without their fine martial arts. Is it a generality, or can we hope for Kung Fu ogre characters? Believe it or not, yes, you can. Man-eaters, as they move from province to province, often pick up talents and skills from the local areas. They are almost always physical ones rather than intellectual ones, so you don't tend to find that they'll be very good at, say, meditation. But they are often pretty damn good at using unexpected weaponry. There are quite literally ogre models with katana who have been through, for example, Nepal. So the answer is actually yes. In our game, the Man-Eater career can take. It's basically got a talent local
I would say
option that allows you to get
just put
access
5
to
or something.
local talents, which is kind of
Which
fun.
will add then to your trade engineer to make that 10 to make it your
And also
speciality.
yeah.
And then you've just got everything
Sounds good.
in the career.
Smiling Limpet says it's generous that they get the plus 15. I don't think so. I think it is an entirely acceptable way to start. I don't feel it's all that generous.
So we
Never
can
did
start
feel it was
now
that generous.
putting it into your character
It just
sheet so you can
doesn't
see
match
impact
the
of things.
same basic setup that you get in, say, for example, Fantasy
So go
Roleplay
to your
2 or
attributes first. And let's
Warhammer
put them
Fantasy
in.
Roleplay 4. It is, however,
Okay, so
worth
14.
noting that if you
In the
play
top box,
long-term
the top
Warhammer,
box.
those few extra points are almost nothing. Because as you move into a long-term play, most of the stats are going to be popping up by far bigger numbers. This is not a huge amount of XP. It's only a couple of hundred. It's a couple of sessions worth. It isn't all that generous in reality. It just
46.
looks generous in comparison to
36.
nothing. Moving down, isn't that
54.
sort of the Man-Eater fantasy? Ogres with martial
30.
arts training from
And
some
then
random place
everything
across
else
the
will get
Warhammer world.
added on
says
other
Dark
places
Bit. Yes,
and
it is.
amend
Um,
Okay.
So then you've got skills.
Why did
Roll
magic
3 times.
resistance challenge change?
just
Because
going to-
the
Just
first
go
one, as
into
I recall,
advances,
didn't do what I
ATV,
wanted. I can't even remember what it does. Could you check up the
Evaluate.
magic resistance talent? I believe you were looking up for the dwarf anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll
for
do that.
interrupting.
I'm currently just putting in my
Yes.
skills into the spreadsheet. Assuming maybe
Magic
once we're all done, do you think people want to see this sheet? I'm not
It's-
sure.
Yeah, you can share it on line just over in Discord.
Okay, I'll
So
do. Well,
you can
once
just-
it's all
yeah,
we've
once
all
it's all
done.
done. In fact, just share it now. We generally share them live so that you can just, if you want to go watch the sheet, you can just watch it get filled in.
Or
slowly.
just watch my
Yeah,
screen.
yeah, it's fun.
Okay.
If you want to go get that, go over to our LAWhammer Discord, which you will find if you're watching later in a link somewhere on the screen.
I'll put it. Yeah, it'll be the link, or I'll
It'll
do
be
something.
somewhere.
I'll do something.
But most of you, I imagine, are probably on Discord already. If you're not, go find us over in Discord, LAWhammer.
Well, I'll just do it in
The easiest place to find it, if you're just doing an internet search, is over on YouTube. Just go to any of our LAWhammer videos on YouTube, and the Discord link is sitting inside the video descriptions over there. And just drop a link over there. Perhaps start your own thing over in Discord. You do
Okay,
that?
what do I
Okay.
do? Just go live screen? How do I do that?
You just if you go up to the top of the card sheet and do share,
Oh, okay.
okay,
Share.
and just get the link,
And they
then
can
go
just see it.
open a topic in Discord and share the link, and then they can just go drop into it if they want.
Okay.
So you can actually watch the card sheet
But I
as
don't
it's
think
building.
it's public.
It'll automatically go public if you do that. It should.
Not the way that Erin just did it.
There should be a little button that you can press to see
Go
anyone with
general
the link.
access restricted.
Anyone
with
with
the
the
link.
Anyone with the
And
link,
now
that's
click
the one.
link, yeah.
Perfect.
And they can anyone with a link can view. Yeah,
And now
that's
you
fine.
can just.
Alrighty, Deserted GM says, hey, what have I stepped it into here? Oh, well, before I answer that, Lindsay has something she'd like to say about, I presume, magic resistance.
Yes. You may not be aware of it, but magic sometimes just can't touch you. Gain a ward 11 minus magic resistance plus save to ignore spells. So if you have magic resistance 1, you have a 10 plus ward to ignore spells. Similarly, magic resistance 2 provides a 9 plus ward to ignore spells, and so on. As this is a ward save, the spell is not dispelled, it just does not affect you. See magic for more details.
Indeed. And it changed because that's what I wanted it to be. Hopefully that will answer that question. So, moving back to Deserted GM, we have the
Who's
Corner Goblin
evaluate?
building a character so you can all see how we build characters over here at LAWhammer. There's an awful lot of us talking over each other all the way through as I ask questions, answer questions as they're posted up on Twitch. They're slowly but surely making their way through building that character. And the link for that card sheet,
So I
I
just have to-
imagine, has been posted on
That's
Discord.
So you need to
If someone
write
can
it in
confirm
lore.
that, that'd be awesome.
Lore.
I
Just
thought these
need to
guys were
write-
going to build a
you
computer, not a
overwrite
character. A bit
speciality with
disappointed.
Talibet class.
Sorry,
No,
we're not
that's
building
language.
computers.
Oh,
We're
sorry.
building characters. So it's not that sort of PC. It's for a game of LAWhammer. They are
so-
building characters for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Yes,
Yeah,
we
actually spell
are.
it.
Any tips to get a group together to play
TALE.
Warhammer Fantasy? Generally speaking, there's a host of different areas online where you can find people who gather who play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, including our Discord over in the LAWhammer Discord, where we have some people who post up in a special channel we have for people looking for players. But you tend to find groups
Metallurgy.
online all over the place, be it
And-
Discord, be it Reddit, be it Facebook or wherever else.
METALL.
Just go join one of those groups and ask, and you tend to find there's a bunch. But if you want to come over to our Discord channel, we've got a place
Is it 2 Ls?
specifically for that. Indeed,
You
apparently.
are Julie. Yeah.
Oh, we've got somebody posting up some Patreon links. Thank you, EJed Cruising.
I put 5 in that. Yep.
Trade engineering.
Corner Goblin's building a dwarf. Correct there, Deserter GM.
Okay. So
Jaguar says, bearing in mind that
Go
plus
back to
15
the
boon to
talent.
career skills at cartridge generation and the spend fate for initial
First of
XP,
all-
having starting age ranges increased in LAWhammer.
Acute
Yeah,
touch, which you
we
can write
have
there.
more options, broadly speaking. You've got your initial random generation, and if you spend fate, you can add, if you're doing it randomly, extra age.
Don't worry about
But
that.
much
stuff,
like
just
all of
Just
the
spend
cartridge
it.
generation rules,
magic resistance.
it is up to the player to decide which ones they want to apply. It's always generally left with player agency rather than anything dictating. So you can have very young, experienced
Sturdy
characters
is over
if
here,
you want
so
to do
just go
so.
and click
Equally,
once.
you can have old, relatively inexperienced ones because of whatever
put one
reasons
in
you
like
want to
that.
build
Okay.
into your game.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Read and write. right over here.
Why did you want a ward save as opposed to making the casting more difficult? Because a host of reasons. So many. Speed of play. Let's just use the most important one. I didn't want to have to constantly be telling people that their casting numbers were different.
And then
I would
lightning
much rather their
reflexes is a
casting
one
numbers were theirs
over
for them
up
to
there.
worry about and deal with at their character
that,
sheet without having to
if
constantly
you go up
ask
now,
and move
that should
outwards
agility,
to get extra
it should
information to come in and do
you see
something.
it's automatically
One of the core
modified
elements
agility.
of LAWhammer's
Except
design
I'll
is
need to fix
speed
your
of
formula.
play, everything moving super, super, super fast. Which means that I want them to be able to calculate everything over at their character sheet. And the ward save is basically what we wanted the dwarf rules to be in the first place anyway. So that's what it is. It's as simple as that. Adding to the casting number just didn't match what happens inside most of the examples that you found online, in books, in various games, where dwarves don't make spells harder to cast. They don't make them harder to cast. They just kind of walk through them. Because they either dispel them if your rules don't have ignoring rules, or alternatively,
That's right.
they walk through them. So, yeah.
Right.
And
I
I
thought being near dwarves made it more difficult to cast. Not really. Indeed, when we first submitted the dwarf rules that are inside the rulebook to GW, there was a query raised because the original rules it was a ward save, and it got changed through development. And they sent a query back saying, this doesn't match. Why is it being done? And the reply was game balance, as I recall. And they went, yeah, fair enough, go ahead with it. But I prefer the rules being this way. It just
Classical.
works much more cleanly at the table, and it doesn't contradict the lore. It reinforces the lore in several places. So I'm happy with that. And there's a variety of extra talents which also add dispelling capabilities in LAWhammer to our dwarves, because our dwarves are particularly notorious for being difficult to cast spells on. So we have both aspects of it carried, but we don't increase the difficulty, because increasing the difficulty makes it much more difficult to run at speed at the table. Instead, we increase their ability to dispel, which mathematically is almost the same. Not quite, but almost.
Perception.
So yeah, that's fun. There we go. Steam Sage has just come in and said that she can edit the card sheets and is giving all the little demon faces in the background.
Can edit it, but we only clicked it to view.
Pardon? Oh, no, she can because she's part of the folder.
Oh,
Because she's a player.
Let's not do that. We're trying to work on it.
They're confused enough as it is already.
I'm learning.
Okay.
okay.
So I think that's.
Now let's put these talents in.
Oh, we need to put the talents in. Yes. Okay.
Darkest Bane says, it's kind of funny how Old World made the opposite change to magic resistant, and it works better that way for a war game. Different games, different requirements. Absolutely. And yes, they did. And there was a huge amount of discussion behind the scenes at the time about it. But, you know, it's funny, eh? And Steam Sage is indeed coming in with a mwahaha, ha ha ha. So how's it going with our skills?
And you've got read write
and
already.
talents?
Yeah.
So from before, so you can actually take it again.
Okay. So how does that work? If I
Wait,
do
so you only
rewrite
get
again?
one talent to begin with, remember? You don't get them all.
No, does I get rewrite?
Oh, sorry.
only get
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
your
You
career
you
talents.
only get one of your career talents. So you'll need to pick one of these to get
Oh, okay.
artistic,
Yeah, you
gunner,
don't
read write,
get
or
them all.
tinker.
You
So
only
the-
choose one.
Okay,
Nice
okay.
tries.
Artistic.
You think artistic, not rewrite?
You've already got
You've already got
read
rewrite from
your
heritage.
heritage,
Of course,
so
of
you're
course.
cool.
So we'll just take
So
artistic.
Tinkerer would be your ability
Tinker
to
might-
fix stuff,
Tinker.
Tinker's better. Yeah.
which is
yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, Tinker makes more sense. I've got
the skill art sketching. I don't really know what the difference between the talent, artistic
The
sketching.
talent means you don't even need to test for it. You just automatically can do
Okay, but I have the
tests.
skill for doing the test.
And the skill means that you can
get
do it
more
with a
successes.
test.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Makes you better at it.
And so
effectively.
that's me done all the talents in here, and so that should all add up and make the changes to everything. So do you want me to go through my talents
No,
or
we've got
something?
more to do.
Have you
Oh,
done
we have
the
more to do.
characteristics yet?
Apologies.
Pardon?
Have you done the
No, now
characteristics?
you've got 15 points to split between your cross characteristics on the
Oh, okay.
engineer.
So that
thingy.
was ballistic, dexterity, and intelligence.
Absolutely.
So dexterity is one I think I want kind of to be put into. So I have 15 to put in all total, yeah?
15 to put in total. You
And-
can only put up to 10 in any one, and
Okay.
you're splitting it between the three of them.
Okay,
so
and
you
is
can
that the
either-
advanced line I put them in?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So do I just do 5 each? I'm not really
I think
thinking...
it's just
well,
the easiest.
5 each
Yeah.
is the
Yeah,
easiest.
Also, to complete the career, which is worth knowing if you're out there wondering why you're putting all these extra bits on. To complete the career, each one of the ones available must have at least 5 advances. So if you do 5 in each, you've completed everything.
Okay,
you
yeah, I've done
for
that. So
the
that's
characteristics
so my
there.
ballistic skill is now better than my weapon skill, which was something that I was like, I'm probably not. It's probably going to be shooting things rather than. Well, actually, I say that I might just whack things with a hammer.
So, would I be correct in saying that you finished your attributes, adding the plus 15 points you've
That's
got?
done now.
You've added your skills, both the heritage ones, so that's your 5, 5, 5, 3, 3, 3, and your
Yeah.
plus 40.
Mm-hmm.
And your talents, where you get 1 free talent plus the ones for your
Yep.
heritage.
Yes.
All done.
All done.
Okay, so this is where we can then check, has she got enough to complete her career? So to complete your career, you need to have the attributes that are available taken to 3 of them, taken to plus 5. Have you got plus 5 advances on the 3 attributes?
You have, because we just did that. The ballistic skill, the dex, and the intelligence.
Ding, 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 tick. Next, from the skills in your career, 8 of them have to have at least plus 5 advances.
Okay, did we not do that already?
Yep.
Yeah, we've already done that. We put the plus 5 in just
no,
all of them.
Yeah, but
Did
you
you-
did. Yeah, so she's put plus 5.
And
You've
you
got
put
plus
Plus 5. I just went on
You
plus
spread
5.
out.
Yeah.
Right, so you couldn't get all of them at plus 5 because there's a total of 10 skills available.
Oh, okay, so.
Okay, so that would mean that 2 of them couldn't get it if you added plus 5 because you only get 40 points spread across it, not 50.
Okay, so.
And this is worth pointing out as well. In our version of the
So
rules,
maybe-
every single
Two
career
of them down.
starts with
Take-
10 skills, not 8. This was a rule
maybe take
proposition that I
perception down.
So
wish
just
was
get
in the
rid of
game
them.
anyway.
Just get rid
And
of that completely and
interestingly,
then get rid of
after we
another one
popped it up,
Okay,
the official
range
game
black
picked this
powder.
rule up
Or-
as well
or-
after I left, which was great as far as
Or
I'm concerned.
leave
So
it
there's
in the other
10
one
skills
and
for
take
every
trade
single one of
engineering
our
down to
careers
5.
at the first
Yes.
level,
Well,
not
that needs to
8.
take 10 off in total.
You need
Yeah,
to
which
take-
you've just done
Yeah,
because you've
I've done
taken
five,
5
yeah.
of perception and
Okay,
5 of that.
That's fixed.
Done. Excellent. Perfect. Okay, and finally, you need to have at least 1 talent from your career. Have you done that?
The talent for my career was Tinker.
Done. Plus, you also have read write as well, don't you?
I got read right from
Already. So you've actually got 2 of them there from your career.
Yeah, technically, I've
Okay,
got the other one
indeed.
from.
So that means you have completed the first level of your career. And if you wanted, you could change career and move up. But what you often find is that people go, well, yeah, but I want the other's talents because there's another couple of talents there. Both of those look quite
The
good.
character needs to grow,
Exactly.
theoretically.
But growing in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, uniquely out of every edition, you can just grow forever without ever changing career. Ever. You just slowly but surely increase the skills there and the talents that you have available there and just keep on throwing your experience into those without ever needing to move. But you, of course, can move as well. So, we've done that. Have you done yours as well, Lindsay?
I know why there's a problem with Birdie's character sheet.
Yes, what is it?
Because it doesn't give her plus 5. It would have given her like 1d10 now.
There you go. That'll be the issue.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Call back to something else completely.
So, are we done?
I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah,
Perfect. Are you done, Lindsay? Or
I haven't written everything in, but I'm pretty much done.
So, having been done, we move to step 5. Trappings. Trappings is the stuff that you have. So, we do trappings slightly differently because we've split it, we've done away with class that you find inside Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4. Fantasy Roleplay 4, each of the careers is associated with a class. Each class gets access to different trappings. Instead, if you go over to page number 19, you'll see that there is the universal trappings. You start with those.
Yeah.
And then underneath that, there is a selection of another, it's about 12 other trappings, and you can choose any 3 of those. So if you want to have 1d10 bottles of beer, you can do so. If you want to have a hat, perhaps glorious, you can do so.
Ooh,
if you want to have 1d10 meals available, you can do so. So we basically give the option of the various bits and pieces of trappings that are available to the player. One of the core components, again, of the LAWhammer version was player agency, always allowing them to make choices rather than having it strongly dictated by some things that might be out of their control. So you just write down a list of trappings, your equipment that you have, which is your cloak, your clothing, your dagger in your pouch, and then add any 3 other trappings from that list. Plus, you also start with all the trappings that are in your career as well.
Yeah, so I've already got them noted down.
Excellent.
Book, engineer, hammer, and I rolled 6 spikes.
6 spikes, very important. Do you need those 6 spikes?
Yes. Well, you know, on the road, you never know what's going to happen. So I'm looking at my trappings I can choose of the 3 and trying to think what makes sense for the character. Because on the road, is the caravan going to be a comfortable place to sleep, or are they going to want to sleep in a tent, or there's camping in a tent? Is that what works?
Yeah. Like maybe you could have a tent that kind of goes on to the carriage, you know.
True, yeah. I could hooks. You know, like you see those like big RVs, and then they have that pops out the side.
Exactly.
I feel like I'm making such a weird dwarf in terms of the world of Warhammer, who's just very friendly.
No, that's...
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just saying...
Creating the unique characters is half the fun of it.
Like, obviously, I'm hoping this video is going to be viewed by people who probably don't even know LAWhammer yet, because it's just about building characters. But if you have been, most of the dwarfs that the players have encountered have been quite...
They've been very dwarf.
Abrasive. And I'm kind of aiming for a less abrasive dwarf, just because I wanted to make a dwarf. I could have made this as a gnome or something, and it would have still kind of worked, but I wanted to make a dwarf.
What shall I take for my lore academic? What kind of...
You're an academic, so you can choose anything.
Yeah, but like it's got to be something that...
You want a kind of complimentary thing going on.
Lore academic.
So while they're deciding that, if you've got an idea what you could be a scholar of, do drop in a lore academic option for her.
This idea of constantly travelling is an important part of this pairing.
She's collecting history, lore history.
So you think lore history, they've already decided you don't get to have an influence in this chat, screw you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even realise you were
But they weren't even listening to me.
That's when I say, like the caravan opens and all the contraptions go, and this your human is telling the stories of history. There's little things, puppets that make the story happen while it's being told.
I've also got language ancient, and I picked classical as well, so we could talk to each other.
Nice.
We might run into some dodgy bandits, and we need to be able to sneakily have conversations, like battle language,
and
which
I've
I know what that
also got language, Wastelander, lore Reichland. Someone suggested lore academic linguistics, but she's already got linguistics as a talent, so it
would be the difference between being able to speak it and understanding what language is.
Oh, maybe I will do that. You know, I do that. This is my character. This is the one.
This is the one.
This is the one.
Language. Okay, yep, sounds good.
So it's not history she's collecting, it's language history, like local.
Tartarus Tromier comes in and says, I couldn't catch the beginning, will we get the word of this later? Yes, we will, as has been mentioned a couple of times at the beginning, which obviously you missed. We're taking questions as we go along, and when we do the VOD later, we'll hopefully add a couple of extra gubbins at the side explaining what we're doing as we go step by step through the process.
Split it all up, and there'll be like time codes that go like, this is where these bits are.
Someone says mathematics or physics could have worked to go along with the engineer.
Well, the question is, are you like my character's assistant, or are you just a friend, and we've got our own
just
story?
A friend. I've got my own.
Yeah, you've got your own
being
thing
on the road.
Yeah, you're on your own thing.
And it's collecting. It's to make my dictionary of archaic words.
Yeah, there we go.
Making your own dictionary of archaic words, lore linguistics it is.
I feel like
you're going to go grab that book just so that you can...
I'm going to see what the name of the person is.
I feel like this is a really weird way of going about this, but I think I might take a tent, a camping kit, and food. I feel like
that doesn't sound weird. It sounds entirely sensible.
It's like we're traveling along. I have a place that's comfortable.
Let me go and do the character.
Love it.
I just feel like the characters coming together. I'm really enjoying that.
The next thing, having established our initial trappings, is our initial wealth.
I haven't done my trappings yet.
You haven't finished your trappings yet? Oh.
How many
Getting ahead
meals?
there. While she's pulling on her trappings, I'll check if there's any other comments there.
Two meals.
Sotex dropped in and said hi, everyone, and checking how the stream's been. The stream's been terrible. Rubbish.
The goblin should stay in her corner.
I have 0 charisma. I'm not suited for this side.
Sotek has asked in particular, give us a gist of their characters so far. So, on one side we have
a dwarf engineer, a very friendly dwarf who
Yeah, travelling showman who creates engineering marvels. No.
That's the plan.
Oh yeah,
That's the plan.
Yeah,
that's
the
the
plan.
intent.
At the start.
I think we're getting to.
I will interrupt and say that this
engineer
is
who
part
dreams.
1 of 2 streams. Part 1 is building a basic character using all of our rules. Part 2 is going to be expanding that character and making it more experienced without necessarily playing through by giving it a chunk of experience and showing how that can be done. So part 1 is getting the concept in place. The next part will be consolidating it and turning it into that wandering person.
So, what you can do if you want is I have posted up a link to the live character sheet so you can see the build that we've done so far. And it's just in the LAWhammer standard Discord chat, so you can go and look at that if you want. But yeah, it's the intention is traveling engineer. So I've taken talents like I can. Let's see. I'm just going to look at the talents. So like evaluate, trade, metallurgy.
That's the skills.
Skills. Sorry, pardon.
No, this is important because
skills like lower metallurgy, evaluate, trade, engineering. So all these things related to the skill of engineering, building, and trading to facilitate this character to do their travels. I re-rolled my initial stats 5 times because the issue I ran into was the fellowship was too low for this characterization, who's meant to be kind of more charismatic than the standard dwarf, and it was terrible. So eventually we got to a point where it ended up actually being quite good.
And what are you making, Lindsay?
I'm making a friend of this dwarf who is a scholar who has decided to travel the roads of the Empire collecting archaic and arcane, potentially one day, words.
Archaic and arcane! Yeah, love that. Love it indeed.
Oh, look, it's James as well.
Oh yeah, we've
The
done
2
Johan.
Jameses. Johan.
We haven't decided the character's name, but again, if you've just chimed in, the character is loosely based on my grandfather, Jim Hunter, who was a mechanical engineer, who also had a particular fondness in his travels of Ireland, so I have Lord Talabicland.
Lovely! Because if you didn't know already, our Talabicland has got an Irish accent. Because that's how we portray our Talabicland. Which is a nice little aside.
My trappings career, my generic trappings are a writing kit, a fine bottle of wine, and 10 bottles of beer.
So,
how many bottles of beer have we
no,
got?
I've got none
Okay, good,
because
I've brought the beer.
you're facilitating the beer. I have the food and the tent. So I have like the weirdest trap. Was like I could have had a grimming kit, but no, my trappings I selected were camping kit, tent, and meals, so I can
Nice.
facilitate. What happens if we have visitors that come to see our show late at night and it rains? We have stuff to cover and we can do our show.
So, initial wealth. How much coin we start with? What is your status? Now, you might go, what's my status? Where is it? It is sitting on your career. And on the career at the top, it's got the name of your career, which I imagine will be apprentice engineer. And sitting beside the apprentice, student engineer, next bit along, we'll have something that says something like brass 4.
Brass 4 is what it
It's
says.
almost like I knew it.
Yeah. It's almost like you sent me just before we started.
Yeah, quite. So there are 3 broad statuses. One is brass, one is silver, one is gold. If you are brass, you are of the lower orders. If you are silver, you are very middle class. If you are gold, you're very upper class. This is broad, though. There's lots of different ways to get access to the different ones. If you've got brass 4, you roll 2d10 for each one of your status. You've got 4, so that's 8d10. Add it together, and you start with that many brass pennies. Now, you might go, what does brass pennies mean? Basically, it's £1 each. Okay, so you're rolling 8d10 pounds that you start off with.
So I'm going to start. I have a bunch of d10s. I'm going to see how many I can roll. So that's 5 of them. Let's see what we get here. 5, 6, 7, 14, 19.
While they're doing that, I'll also check if there's any comments over there.
I've got £53 pence.
19, 20.
Fred says, the stream's lovely.
30.
Oh,
30.
thanks for making a dwarf so we can get more of an idea of the Dawi and LAWhammer. I love the in real life connection, as do I. Excited for part 2 as well, as am I. Dark Eyes Bane comes in and says, is there a snappy name for the main dwarf culture along the lines of the Imperial Dwarves, Norse Dwarves, Chaos Dwarves? Do you mean like the Karakankor Dwarves? They're currently just marked as Karakankor in our rulebook, as I recall. So they're not given like royal dwarves or any of that nonsense. They're just Karakankor dwarves. Or alternatively, we refer to them often as the Dawi. But yeah, the Karakankor ones. So not really a snappy one.
But they could all be Karak dwarves, couldn't they?
Yeah, I mean they could be. I mean that would make sense. The mountain dwarves.
They're the
could easily
dwarves
be
that are in
Karak dwarves.
holds rather than the
It would be an
dwarves
easy,
that are
snappy
in
title if you were
Karak
looking for one.
dwarves.
I wouldn't be against that. Karak dwarves sort of makes sense.
I just realised Sage went and edited my character's house as Pip.
Sage has been in the background editing the house to poop on the
Oh,
character sheet.
Sage.
Sage is one of our players, if you don't know, and she has access to the character sheets in the background. She's sitting at home just now, gently editing things in the background, like referring to the clan name here as poop.
When do we do our eye colour and hair colour and all
We're
that?
getting there. Chill out.
I'm excited for that.
We're doing trappings just now. So have you finished off your money? Have you
Yes,
both got
I
your
have
money? In the
30 brass.
You have 30 brass. You're currently travelling with about 30 quid in your pocket.
I've
Not very
got
much.
53 brass.
53.
My money is invested in the caravan. It's an investment for the future.
Quite.
I think that should technically count as a trapping.
So next step is step 6. Erin, if you're editing the video right now, we're at step 6. Put in a card.
One of my trappings is opinions. As a scholar.
As a scholar, it's a very important trapping. Opinions. Okay, so we're now doing exactly what Lindsay was hoping for as she was jumping the gun, which is adding detail. This is where we go through and we do things like adding names, hair colour, bits and pieces about family and similar. So first, name. Human names. Humans in the Empire, which is where obviously you're playing because you're a Reiklander, generally have a forename and sometimes a surname. Your forename is any old, generally speaking, Germanic name. There's a bunch of them that I've listed as examples over inside the rulebook that they're using. Human surnames are passed from one generation to the next and are only common in cities and towns. In rural areas such as villages and hamlets, humans are more likely to take on a surname when they reach adulthood, and often not even then. For those that leave their birthplace, it's common to take a surname indicating where they were born, such as Wilhelm of Auerswald or Gerhard of Ubersreich. Gerhard. A variation of this is common practice amongst the nobility, who often have 2 surnames. The first is the noble's house, which could be anything from a recent invention to an ancient name with roots dating back to the time of Sigmar. The second is preceded by Fon to indicate that their family holds land. A name such as Zenekar Trot Fontaine is a perfect example of this.
He's a bad guy.
People must be so confused if they've not watched the stream.
Zenekar Trot is indeed one of the characters in our stream, and apparently there are opinions already manifesting. However, individual family traditions vary widely, and there is no standard to all the nobles' households. Among noble common folk, the most common surnames are derived from their occupations or include an occupation of a parent or grandparent. Examples of this include Bauer for farmer, or Fleischer for butcher, or Schmidt for smith, or Schuster for cobbler. If someone has a particularly notable physical trait, this might also be used as a surname and can be passed down from parents to child too, which can become very confusing for literal-minded dwarfs, because dwarfs in our version, and to a degree over in the official fantasy roleplay as well, are very literal. They take words that are given to them as they mean, and they prefer people to speak plainly. Metaphor should only be used in a poetic instance. It's used for a purpose. It's not used in language. Idioms, they don't like unless those idioms are poetically used for a reason. So when someone says something idiomatic in Reichspiel, dwarfs can sometimes get quite confused. So
they like a kenning in a saga, but only if it helps the alliteration.
For example,
yeah,
yes, it makes a lot of sense for art.
Yeah, rattle your bone cage.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But a bone cage, that makes sense. It's a cage of bone. Yeah. That's literal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not so much a metaphor. That's a quite literal cage.
No, but it means body.
That is when it's wrong. Now the dwarf's upset. It doesn't mean body. It's my bones that form a cage. It's a bone cage. And that's the difference between the dwarf opinion and usage of words in comparison to the human use. And that's almost hard-coded into how dwarves think. They are very literal species.
So looking at this character I'm attempting to build, it would be a situation that in their normal speak, it's all very literal. The only time they will use flowery language, so to speak, is only in the frame of this is for entertainment of a show.
Yeah.
But it will not otherwise. Show's over, everything becomes very literal.
And even then, the show is almost certainly using very literal idioms to do it, because dwarves are just different humans.
Which is why you may have to do shows just like I can't be dealing with these
you
people.
are an imperial dwarf, which means that you take on more human traits per se than others. It's also worth noting, to finish off there, so, for example, it's quite common for some humans to be called, say, lang, meaning tall, but the name's been passed on. It's quite possible for a short person to be called lang, which the dwarves will just look at them. And you're not tall. Why would anyone do that to you? That doesn't make sense. That's just not correct, because they're quite literal. Other examples include Augen lost for one eye, done for very thin, light for light voices, stark for strong. Dwarf names, by comparison, are comprised of a forename, a surname, and a clan name. And this includes Imperial Dwarves, although many Imperial Dwarves have lacks, but we'll get to those in a moment.
Can I just say that he's a fun baddie, Trot. He is a baddie you like to hate. Dear reader, I married him.
Yeah, fair enough. So dwarf forenames tend to be short and sturdy, like the people that they represent, and are most commonly given to celebrate important ancestors, although individual clan traditions vary. Another common practice is to use a birth name to describe a key trait of the newborn in Kazalid, which is the dwarf language. Examples of names are things like Alric, Baradrin. They're all very real-world Norsey and Scandinavian-esque in terms of how they go. Dimzad, Fenna, Gendraka, but they're more influenced by rather than directly taken from. Gotri, Gundren, Snorri. And it's got some Kazalid examples here as well, like Baragaz meaning cannon mouth, or Durak meaning hard, or Galazil meaning golden haired, or Noldok meaning wise eyes, Nazril meaning shimmering, or Okri meaning crafter. And again, there's an easily found wiki online if you want to see some examples of the dwarf language. And if you're building a dwarf, you can just pop up to that wiki, find a word you like the look of, and say the dwarf has been named after this because they look like this to the particular parent. Or, as is more often the case for dwarves, it's more of they've been born into a specific clan, which pretty much almost means you're going to be that for the rest of your life, because that's what you were born into, and they are naming you for what you are going to be, whether you like it or not, because there is no like it or not for dwarves. They're very literal. That's just who they are. So next, dwarf surnames are usually based on who raised the dwarf, with the following suffixes being the most common, one being daughter, daughter of, snev, nephew of, sneeze, niece of, and son, being the son of. And son is generally the men generally take their father, the women generally take their mother. It's common as dwarves age and accrue deeds for their names, for them to adopt a nickname based on physical appearance, prowess, or deed. These are usually bestowed by clan consensus, so it's not something you just take yourself. That would be presumptive. Dwarves are not presumptive. It would be almost dishonourable to name yourself. The clan names you for what you've done. And it's considered dishonourable to give a name that doesn't represent the true character of the dwarf. If such a nickname is adopted, it usually replaces the surname completely. So Gerdrak Cardadaughter would become Gerka Cardadaughter would become Gerka Blackhand if she took that nickname. Sometimes a nickname is marked in Kazalid, but dwarves usually translate such names to the local language in order to better explain themselves so that they are properly understood. They're very practical. They were saying everything in Kazalid, no one would understand what it is, and they want people to understand who they are, because that's who they are, because that's what they've got the nickname for. I am Blackhand, because of whatever deed or whatever it is. So you should know that, so they translate it into the local language. Many dwarves feel is super important as part of the correct social integration with others. So names, for example, are just made up, include things like Axebringer, Fine Hand, Fork Beard, Iron Blade, Red Hammer, or Stonefist. Clan names, finally, all dwarves bear a clan name, assuming they've not abandoned dwarf tradition, which some dwarves living in the Empire have, so you've got that as a choice, especially rogue engineers and other tradition abandoning scoundrels. You tradition abandoning scoundrel. The clan name is often derived from the ancestor who founded the clan and is often sourced in a nickname, which is often expressed in Casalid. In practice, dwarves rarely use their clan name outside of dwarf society unless they're specifically asked to do so. Common Reichland clans include the Ardungren, the Brintox, the Gazani, important clan for our game, Gromheld, the Haraslings, and the Umboki. Common Grey Mountain clans are included there as well. So, loosely speaking, you can make it up.
Okay. Well, I have some elements that could be used to try as a group to try and figure something out that kind of fits and kind of playful take from reality, and how do we translate into a Warhammer setting. I said my grandfather, his name Jim, or he was commonly always referred to as Jim, James Hunter. Looking at things like who raised him, he was raised primarily by his mother. That's another thing, because his father died when he was very young. She was ran the post office. I don't know if that's probably not something to translate over. I always
there is an Imperial Post Service.
I always recall my grandpa as an engineer.
If that was the case, we'd actually be in a different career. We'd probably be in a service career in the post office, or indeed similar.
So in terms of like things I remember about him in terms of these, like he's an engineer. I always recall his hands being either greasy and black from being engineering stuff. There was always grease and stuff on his hands all the time. And yes, works with big plasma cutters or something. So big chunky bits of metal was just his thing. So I don't know. There are little elements that kind of think about deeds and stuff that he was also very well travelled. He always says that he couldn't speak any language, but he could say, "I do not speak whatever language" in every language. So he didn't know how to speak French, but he could say, "I do not speak French." Just weird, like these characteristics to like play around with.
That's very practical too. Love it. So you've already got Jacobus as a potential name, which I think works really well, because we're looking at a dwarf much like Joseph Bugman, who has naturalized to Imperial Society and has picked up names that are perhaps a little bit more leaning over to the Imperial side than you might mention.
So Jacob.
Yeah, or Jacobus or Jacob, whichever you prefer.
I think Jacob maybe just goes by Yak sometimes because of the shortening thing.
Love it. Okay, love it. That's great. And then your last name could be, again, it could be something that just speaks to, like Blackhand. I mean, it seems to be an almost obvious one, given that he's always got his hand covered in grease. Okay, and he's known for tinkering and working on things and constantly doing that. I think that works really nicely.
Jack Blackhand.
Are you happy? Nope, well, that's them all.
Is that what he's being called? Is that what we've decided is his name?
No, Jacob Blackhand. But his friends call him Yak Black. Yak Black.
Yak the Black.
Yak the Black.
Quite like that.
Okay. Or we lead into the hunter thing. No, that's like hunter thing.
Have anything that you'd like to drop off on your side?
No, but there's loads of questions for you in
chat.
I'll
get to those. That's why I was asking. I was asking if have you got a name yet?
No. I was going to try and randomise it. Aren't we randomising everything?
No.
For you were doing lots of randomising, but you've clearly got an idea of your character now.
Well, not really.
Oh, you...
Not as a person.
While they're doing that, I'll quickly run through the comments, because you do need to sort yourself out a name there.
Like a clan.
They are indeed saying boo to good old Trot. I mean, how could you? That's just not fair. Moving down through the comments, a lot there. If you're an elf, here's one from Wolf King. If you're an elf and have read and write, is that only Eltharine, or is it both Reichspiel and Eltharine? In the core rulebook, that would be both, because you can read and write any language you can speak, and the core rulebook assumes that you can speak your native tongue plus Reichspiel. So it would be both. In our version of read-write, go check up the talent. It works differently. So you can go find that over on the LAWhammer Patreon.
Yours or mine?
You can take the talent multiple times for multiple languages that you can read-write. Did Juros name her Alamenawythe, or did she name herself that? Neither. Alamenawythe was a name that was given to her long before. The Witch of the Wood that used to exist there was known as Alamenawythe. If you don't know what that means, go watch our streams. Yeah, I'm wondering if he named the word as is it just a dickish Juro-style joke? No, it's not. Although it's also worth noting that Alemanawithe can be spelt more than one way, and depending upon how you spell it, depends on its meaning. Indeed, if Lindsay's got the right book, she might even be able to show you that.
If only I had mapcam.
Yeah, Eltharine. But you can't just shove it up at the camera.
I'm trying like Black Panther. It's like I'm trying to do something so it's not
you
so
can
Jack
literally-
Blacky. But
You can stand up and put it over my camera, because who wants to see me?
This is top
I don't.
secret. This is top secret stuff.
should
But
I think
you can still show
is
that
it
it's
worth
got
trying to
different
come up with like
elements
other like genuine like his proper like his name before the
Is that worth
nickname?
it?
Like,
Oh, yeah,
what-
definitely
So
worth
like
it.
that's something like leading into the idea of Hunter as in like something. If we take something like that, because that obviously was.
So I have no idea if that's you're got the wrong page in front of it. You need to swap it for the other page. Oh, there we go, down slightly. Oh yeah, that's it. That's good. Apparently that worked. Okay, so you get an opportunity there to quickly see different ways to spell her name in Eltharine there, which is super fun. So yeah, that's the sort of stuff that we do behind the scenes because we can't help ourselves.
And those are based on the
Yeah,
Warhammer runes, but specifically Thomas Piranen's
They're-
aesthetic.
Yeah, totally. Because he had a different
particular
Yes,
aesthetic
he did.
that's lovely.
Eltharine has been expressed in more than one way. But Thomas, when he did the what we're looking at, is that 6th ed? Holy crap! You're out there, so tech. Remind me, was it 6th ed? Pretty sure it is. I think it's 5th ed that does it with the square blocky ones. 6th ed, I think, is the long thin runes instead that Thomas used, and they are, broadly speaking, the runes that we use as well. Although on the character sheets, we use the more blocky ones because they look better inside the boxes for the careers.
And they're easier to read.
Much easier to read there. Sweden says, we know the Witch of the Wood was named this. That's correct. You did know that. That was Alemanawithe for anyone who's wondering what that one's about. Right, anything else here? Ooh, secrets. That worked. It did work. How dare Andy insult the absolute freaking masculine god that is Andy? Aw, so tech. It was indeed 6th edition. Thank goodness my memory didn't fail me. Which, by the way, it often does. Okay, so we have got ourselves names. Are we ready to move on to the next part?
I haven't got a surname because I'm going to wait
don't
for
need a
that.
surname.
I'm going
I have,
Marieka.
I have a nickname and I have a first name, and that's kind of it. Which I
That'll
feel
do.
like
That'll do.
we'll figure out
gives
later.
us
We'll
going.
figure out the rest later.
That gives us a good place to
Yak
to
Black
work
Hand
from.
or Yak Black.
Right, so next. Psychologies.
Just to go back to that point, Erin, if you get a nickname, it replaces your surname.
Mhm.
So that's fine. You don't need the surname.
Okay.
It's only.
But it's just
Yeah,
last
but
name.
it
I'm
would
thinking
be-
like history.
But for the history of the character, it would almost certainly have been father's name plus son.
Yeah.
Okay,
I cannot
so
remember my great grandfather's
okay,
name.
so you could just
Just make something up.
yeah, exactly. Bobson. Very, very dwarfy. Psychologies. The old world is full of people who hold ancient grudges, slow-burning hatreds, and ingrained prejudices. Yes, people in the old world are bigoted. Psychologies represent any strong feeling your character may have for certain people, situations, or creatures. Full rules for the impact of these are found in the psychologies bit that we have later. And the important part is, what do we get? Humans. You can optionally choose one prejudice. You don't need to have one, but you can. Prejudices are generally things like, I don't like dwarfs. I don't like Ostlanders. You know those Stirlanders? They smell of ick, pee, and woo. You know those Estallions? Yeah, no. It's basically, you're a bit of a bigot.
I am a hail fellow, well met sort of
But
person.
it's also worth noting that you can choose up to 2 more if you do choose the first one for 20 XP each. So you start off... Yes, we do indeed reward people for starting off for being bigots. Because who doesn't like to get a bit of extra XP? But if you want to make a bigot, you can do, but you can make someone who is absolutely not at all. It's up to you. Dwarves, however, you get hatred greenskins, whether you want it or not. Optionally, you can also choose one animosity. That's someone you just don't like. That's not just a prejudice, which is someone, I don't get on with those people. Those people smell a little bit. They're not cool. That's animosity. That's, I really don't like these people. If you do that, you can also choose up to 3 prejudices extra for 10 XP each. And then you can choose also, if you wish, another hatred for 10 XP each. Because dwarves have problems. They just have problems. They don't like people. They are known for holding grudges. And it's not just a cultural thing. It is almost ingrained into their psyche. If someone crosses them, they tend to go, I don't like those people, in the same way that kids get neophobia. In that they get foods that they know are safe, and they tend to avoid other foods. So they end up getting their favourites, and it sometimes takes a little bit of getting them over the neophobia they have for the other foodstuffs. And if you don't pay attention to that, your kid will end up just, I don't know, eating crisps and ice cream or something.
I'm so hungry.
Yeah, I probably should have said. Well, Lindsay and I have just started a new diet, and it's going to suck. I have to for my health, sadly.
Why did you
would you like
mention
some
food?
peri-peri
I'm just gonna
sauce?
swing the peri-peri sauce.
I have had so few calories today. I'm actually imagining a chicken flying by.
This
the
smells
screen. And if Erin
really
puts a chicken
God,
flying
just took a
by
swig.
later on when she produces this video with a chicken flying by. Yeah, that's how I feel right now. It's
Cheeky
literally-
Nando's.
Cheeky Nando's. Okay, so it's a part of being a dwarf, and
Okay.
much like humans have got their own internal mental processes, dwarves, when people cross them, they tend to avoid them. So they just build prejudices. So, for example, if you've been entertaining in Hochland, and the Hochlanders booed you out because they thought your show was poor, often that will turn into the dwarf going, well, I don't like Hochlanders.
Okay.
Screw going to Hochland. Hochland sucks. So you can do that if you wish, or that all sounds mighty complicated. I don't really know who this character is yet, and
Yeah.
you can just say, I have hatred greenskins.
I think that's
and you
easier.
can worry about psychologies later.
It sounds about, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Com-
It's just worth covering that because the way we do psychologies is quite different to how Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 does it. 4 just basically says, there's psychologies, yeah, take some if you want. And that's it. Where we have specific rules for each one of the species and how they represent. For example, all elves choose one animosity. There's just some people they just do not like.
What's the
There-
difference between like a
Nils.
prejudice, a hatred, and an
Nils.
animosity? How would you define the
Loosely
differences?
speaking, a prejudice is a group of people that you just don't like very much. You can engage with them, but you'll find you'll have higher difficulties. Okay, they're just the sort of people where you're like, well, you know, they're right-clanders. You know, I don't like nobles. You know, it can be a certain class. You know, it doesn't mean that you won't do anything. You just don't like them. Animosity, you objectively dislike them and you will speak out against them. You see a noble, fuck you!
Okay.
Okay, a Hochlander passes by, you suck! Many dwarves are like this with the elves. They don't necessarily take the same thing, but they just look at an elf and they're like, I'm not dealing with that elf. So it's very common for a dwarf to take, for example, animosity elves.
Feelings mutual.
They just
Pal.
don't like them very
You're not
much.
playing enough of that scenario.
So that's quite common. Where when we move all the way up to a hatred, you will not deal with them, you will attack them.
I don't think
You
I have an option in this
despise
scenario.
them.
Greenskins, they're not going to be like, what? You want to have dinner?
You want to come see the show?
No, I don't think they're really going to have an option. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you're going to kill me, so I'm going to open up the guns in my caravan.
It's worth speaking to compare this to how we do our halflings. Halflings can choose up to 2 loves for
Aw.
10 XP each. They don't even have to choose anything. They just get to have 2 loves. So they love right-clanders, possibly too much. You may choose 2 camaraderies as well for 10 XP each. So
So that's
people
like
that
one
get-
lower down than love. No.
Do not belittle their emotions.
Okay.
And any one of the characters,
Mechanically speaking.
it's one across.
One
It's a
ac-
different.
okay.
It's a different thing. And mechanically, anyone can take any one of the psychologies. So any dwarf could take loves and camaraderies, or any of the other various psychologies as well. It's just that some of them give you XP bonuses if you take them, because most examples of their species have those ones in particular. Dwarves are not specifically known for their love of people, but halflings, by comparison, kinda are. Next, ambitions. I did say that quite loudly. Ambitions. Ambitions are characters' goals in life. These are the things that you're looking to do. You have short-term and long-term ambitions. The short-term ambitions are the things that you want to do almost immediately. And I think you don't need to worry about, because we're intending on doing more
Yep.
of this later
Yep.
when we expand the character. So you do it after you've done the expansion. But the long-term is definitely worth doing. This is where they would like to end up. And long-term ambitions are supposed to be unachievable. This isn't the stuff that you expect to happen. This is the long-term dream. So, as an Andy, I might have had a dream to run Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the sort of thing that you would not expect anyone to do because so few people in the world have done it. But I did it. Hey! I ran the entire
Did you
game.
get a fate point?
I got my 500 XP and I can retire. And I'm retiring now, streaming online. There we go. So I did it. Woo! But it's meant to be something that's super unlikely. So if you're a wizard, you might go, I wish to rule the colleges of magic. You know, something a bit big. But big is very local, because it's possible that, you might have a dream as a farmer to one day own your own land, or just own your own farm or something similar. You don't need to have one just now, but it's definitely worth pinning down. And if you were moving into playing, you definitely would.
I have an idea. Love
ideas already. Love it.
To have, I think his ambition, going down the line of what he is already kind of doing, is to have a wondrous engineering theatre where everything is like alive with kind of mechanical and like I said,
mechanical theatre.
But like in like Altdorf, it wants to have like a mechanical theatre in Altdorf. Is like the impossible dream.
My impossible dream.
The impossible dream.
My impossible dream is to find the first language.
Find the first Logos. Go right to the very beginning. What is the first language and how does it work?
Exactly.
And Warhammer has one. So that's super cool. Like that. They are both great.
Not just find it, I mean learn it too.
So I will make one other note about long-term ambitions. When I do my next pass of the rules, the long-term ambitions are going to undergo somewhat of a change, so they're a little bit more useful. Because they don't do an awful lot inside the rule system as we currently have them. So we're going to be doing a little bit more towards that. But that can come a little bitty later. Okay, so that's our ambitions done. Next is our physical details. Some bits and bobs about the character. Their age, their height, their eye colour, and their hair colour. So age for a human, you generally start at 15 plus D10. But again, this is not required. If you don't like the age you roll, you can just fix it to something else.
22.
22, good.
But we can, maybe if we add every career we add on when we build them, we should add an age.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because we are going to be doing a second stream, if you've arrived with our stream late, where we're going to be showing how to expand your characters with a bit of XP. Okay, so dwarves start at, you ready? 15 plus 10 D10. Do you want more D10s?
Yeah, pass me some more.
Here, I've got a box of them.
Yeah,
there we go.
let's-
One giant box of D10s.
Okay, so D10. Okay, how many have I got here?
Okay, so on average, it's got the lifespans marked here for how long most of the species live. 60 generally for a human, and we know that humans can live longer than that, so this isn't the normal lifespan, it's the average. 120 for halflings, about 200 for a dwarf, and elves who don't appear to age at all and have been known to live for 1,000 years or more.
Babes, it's the Botox.
It's the Botox.
This comes from the trees.
So yes, you can't just...
It's tree sap.
This tree sap digs it right into the
There must
face.
be a tree joke in there with Botox.
Okay, let's see here. 8, 10, 14, 16, 20, 29, 34, 38,
47.
47, and 56 plus 15. 50. That's my brain.
71.
71. Okay, so yeah, 71.
Excellent. 71 years old. Good age. So
Great.
broadly speaking, 45 to 50 is when you go from being, a wild teenager into being accepted as an adult. So about the 20 mark at 50. So at 70, you're sort of in your mid-20s, somewhere in there.
That kind of matches the
relatively
idea
young.
of like the ambitious, somewhat
Yeah, quite.
free-loving life that I think he's kind of going
height.
for.
And this is where we hit a point of general contention with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which I think is worth pointing out, because it's a detail that the art sometimes gets either right or wrong, depending upon your opinion. How high or tall is a dwarf? And according to some artists, they're half the height of a human. That's only 3 foot tall. According to some artists, they're almost on average 5 foot tall. According to Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, they have always been on average about 4.5 to 5 foot tall. Always. Which means that they come up to humans to about there. They are not the tiny creatures that halflings are by comparison. Halflings are called halflings for a reason. But many Warhammer artists do not depict them at that height. They depict round, squat, often never more than about 4 foot tall creatures. And this is something you've got to decide for your own games, whether you want to go with the official heights that Fantasy Roleplay uses or change it. My preference has always been slightly smaller than the average for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, purely because it doesn't match any of the art. The art is pretty indicative about the height between elves and dwarves, between humans and dwarves, and it's not dwarves look like exceedingly almost as big as humans type things with their big squat bodies. So generally speaking, my dwarves are a bit shorter than the average in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but also a bit taller than the weirdos that are only, say, the height of a halfling. So in your case, I think the easiest way to randomize it would be if you go for the 4-foot-ish area, you could just roll a d10 and add that, and that would give you a nice easy height.
4'8".
4'8", there we go. That's pretty much on the standard.
Nice.
Humans, however, are different.
Oh, what do I do?
Because if humans, when they roll their height, roll a 1 or a 10, because humans are chaotic by their nature, I like to make them extremely tall or short on either side.
I rolled a 1. So.
Oh, okay, she's short. Really like that, in fact. Okay, so if you're super short, roll yourself a d10, see how short.
2.
Oh, Christ, you're tiny. You're like at the same height as the dwarf. That's awesome.
We're quite a pair.
Yeah,
4'8".
Love that. Okay, so we've got ourselves a super short dwarf. Now, we don't have the tables for the eye colour and hair colour here, but there should be a copy of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay sitting in front of you. Or at least there was.
You took it out earlier?
Did I take it out earlier? So when Lindsay's running off to the office,
You're being sent.
I'll go check if there's any questions. Sweden asked for a masterclass in L3 cartography. Funny. Easy Cruding says, fuck Sterling. Indeed, prejudice Sterling is not uncommon. I'm choosing to see the timing of this stream as a personal attack, says Wind Turning Leaf. I do apologise. The one day that you're out till late and we're streaming, yes, we are. Those Corner Goblin scum, quite. The goblin would not be liked by the dwarf. Of that one, there's absolutely no doubt at all. I never understood why dwarfs don't get hatred Skaven. And you know what, Squeak, you're correct on that one. Most of, especially the Karak dwarfs, have got long-standing grudges against the Skaven. But you've got to also recall that many of the holds... No, yeah, the argument I was about to make was weak. No, I'm going to go with many of the Karak dwarves absolutely would. I think there's no doubt that they should have it there, and our rules leave more than enough space for that, but they don't make it a fundamental part of being a dwarf with the greenskins is. So you could easily do that with the rules that we have, where if you're using Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, you basically have to make it up a little bit. But broadly speaking, I agree. Although Dark Icebane does pop up. Dark Icebane, Bane, I can't decide how to say that. There's no such thing as Skaven.
That's what was
That'd be like
confusing
giving
me.
them, that'd be like giving them
Theoretically,
hatred
they should know about them.
boogeymen, quite. Completely agree. As an adult, says, so take my long-term ambition is to own his own house. It'll never happen, but he can dream.
We can kickstart a house.
Yeah,
Just
quite.
need to find a reason.
Kickstart your own house. Yeah, that's definitely going to work. The animosity isn't unreasonable when he refuses to post the career word master list. I see you're getting after the career word list again when turning leaf. Short! Yes, short. An Imperial Dwarf, so 50-50 on that knowledge, but yeah, it's a bit weird for the Karak Dwarves. Yeah, I agree. Will there be a VOD for this later? Yes, there will, so you'll get to watch this one later. It will be getting zinged up by our lovely Corner Goblin during the course of however long it takes. So, lastly, maybe it's because the Skaven have been added later than Orcs. It's not, actually, to cut that one. So, Infoflux says that the Skaven aren't there because, broadly, they were added as a species after the Orcs to the Warhammer setting, and they didn't have the same Tolkien-esque background. You're correct. It's that. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at it and say, can we fix it if it needs fixed, given the history that Warhammer has regarding the Skaven and the Dwarves? And the answer is, yes, we can. Now, the LAWhammer version of the rules has got it nicely slotted up so you can do it easily. But if you want to do it over on Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, you just have to make your own rule up for it. But yeah, absolutely. I think you're 100% all correct there. Okay, so have you got the tables there, Lindsay?
Yeah.
So eye colour first.
Roll a d10, Erin. No, 2d10. Add them together. Tell me the result.
9.
9. Your eyes are earth brown.
How exciting.
Mine are... What's that? Pale grey.
Oh, do we have such exciting eyes?
No. Oh no, just grey. I did that wrong.
Okay, what about here?
Okay, same again. 2d10.
Brain. 15.
15 is like green hair. No, wait, that's wrong. Brown hair. And I've
And
got
again, you can change it. Rob. That's one of the joys of these things.
And usually I just make characters have red hair in games. Or white.
I don't think I want grey eyes.
What did you roll for your hair?
Dark brown.
What are the actual options? I'm curious. Steel. Wasn't that just like
Grey.
grey?
Dark grey.
The ones I would go for if I was to pick would probably be green or gold, just because I think gold, yellow eyes are cool. But I'm just gonna roll with what I've got.
Originally, they were all going to be words that were related to things dwarves like copper,
all of
lead,
them.
steel.
Well, kind of there, yeah.
But someone changed that.
Well, the brown is like air, like soil.
Like the wood elves were going to be
All of
they're
them.
all like nature colors, and
like-
the high elves were going to be all
gems.
and the only one they kept like that. Oh, the halflings were going to be all food,
Oh,
like toffee colored eyes.
Oh,
and-
that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's lovely.
But look, they kept some of them like licorice coloured hair.
Yeah.
Which when you don't have it for the rest of them, it's just like, why the fuck have you called it licorice?
It's a bit random, but there you go. There's a little insight into the writing of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4 and how it moved from its original submission that I popped in and turned into something else later.
It was my job to find them.
Yeah. I set Lindsay the task because I wrote about half of them, and I was like, the rest of these are pretty bland weak. Lindsay, go figure it out.
Find the words,
Because
Lindsay.
Lindsay loves finding words, so she went off and she found a whole bunch of other words so that all of them had a really characterful set, but sadly, many of those vanished in editing. I am disappointed to this day. Okay, so have we organised our...
No, I haven't decided what I'm going to be.
Well, what, for your hair colour?
I think I'll be auburn.
Auburn?
I
Would you
was
like
to
an
reroll
auburn
just
hair
to
colour?
see if I get something different that is
Yeah.
more
Go
interesting.
for it.
So for eye color, I'm going to see 11. What would 11 be?
11 for eye colour is also earth brown.
Well, we're just
It's
sticking-
quite common for dwarves to have
Okay,
earth
so
brown.
let's see if we get a
eyes.
more interesting hair color. I feel like contrasting,
Go for it.
if I can, but 13.
Dark brown.
Okay, I'm not going to bother. They're both, it was brown either way. Yeah,
Good.
I'm just going to accept.
Right, next. Step 7. Bringing your character to life. So this is something that we kept from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2. And that was the 10 questions. And the 10 questions are just 10 simple questions that can give you, through answering them, a pretty strong idea of what your character is like. You go through each one and you don't think about it too in depth because you often find through roleplay it changes. And different points, because you find out who your character is through playing it, become more important. But to begin with, it can be super handy pinning down many of these details because it gives you more of an idea of how to roleplay that character when you first get to grips with it. So going through the 10 questions, the first one is nice and simple. Where are you from?
Where could I be from?
So that's a good question.
Is it-
So obviously you've been touring around Talabicland. And if you're looking for the primary dwarf settlements in Talabicland, Talabheim makes the most sense. That's the big capital of that entire area. Big city-state. For a quick detail there, a huge crater, 13 miles across, 100 miles in circumference, and the city is in there.
That's cool.
It's cool, yeah.
I like that.
And dwarves have been known for loving to go there. It's got a big tunnel that goes through the side of the crater towards the main city itself. And then you go through a switchback road that eventually leads down to the city itself at the bottom. It has a sizable dwarf population, many of which are ancient refugees from holds that fell thousands of years before, many of whom still consider themselves to be Carrick dwarves. As far as they're concerned, they just haven't been home for a while, 4,000 years. But for a while. Others have entirely naturalized to the local situation. They are generally perceived to be somewhat lost by the Carrick dwarves, but they are most certainly not ostracized. They're just, they're not very dwarfy.
In the scenario, if I pick that, would I then, in a roleplay situation, have to roleplay Irish, and it might be very
That
offensive?
would be a more likely accent that you would have, but it wouldn't be a necessity because accents are always optional. aren't they?
Oh, well, I would like to lean into that because I can.
Yeah.
know I can do voices.
Yeah, totally. And
Is
yes, it would be It would be if you're going for a naturalized Imperial Dwarf. It's very likely he'd have somewhat of an Irish accent.
Okay, so I feel a bit weird about doing that, and I would like to play this character. Let's be honest, I'm enjoying this, and I do want to play this character. So I'm feeling a bit weird about trying to do that because I would like to try and do a voice with it. So because it's like maybe I'm thinking fondness of Talbot is not necessarily from growing up there, but from traveling there. I don't like that in terms of going back to kind of inspiration. My grandfather grew up beside a small lake in the eastern outskirts of Glasgow, Norway. Nothing very exciting.
So
Greenlands, there was a lake.
So now we're talking north. Oh, north. Now we're talking north, and up and toward Nordland in the north, where our Scottish accents lie for.
Yeah, let's lean into Scottish because I can do that. I can get into Scottish accents better.
So there's Scottish sounding dwarves in both Middenheim, which is where the game currently is sitting, in LAWhammer, all the way up to Salzman, the capital of Nordland, and all the way over to Albion as well, where there are some very, very strong Scottish accents in the north of Albion, which is a whole island system that's absolutely nothing like Great Britain, honest, that sits over the seas from the Empire. So it's very possible he came over from there, and is a far more Scottish-leaning appearing dwarf than you might normally expect.
Well, leading into kind of the whole travelling thing, not being from like the place that they would be in,
Love it.
works in
An
terms.
Albioner.
Will we do that?
Although we did go with the Imperial Dwarf.
Okay, so let's not do that. But let's
so maybe Nordlander.
Nordland.
Okay, but maybe from Albioner family. So,
Okay.
So parents who were Albioner dwarfs and raised possibly in Salzman.
Okay, so would that be like birthplaces where, but then the houses on Albion dwarf house kind of thing?
Yeah, your birthplace would be Nordland. Let's just keep it nice.
Just say Nordland.
Yeah, Nordland. So where are you born? Where are you from?
Reichland.
Reichland. Whereabouts?
Maybe if he's travelled in Reichland, in Talbotland, maybe the Reichland-Talbotland border. If your character's travelling.
Maybe that's how we met.
Yep.
Reichland Talbot border. So we've got a long border there which extends from Altdorf, goes all the way down past Nadjesdorf, all the way over to Dijsdorf, to Kemperbad, from Kemperbad all the way down towards Grunwald, down to the Grisonwald, probably down at the bottom near Nuln. You got a long border there if you want to go with any of those. You could be from a good host of different places down that side if you wished. Even for some rather odd places like the Princedom of Onelreich or something like that, which would be very odd. A place that's in Reichland yet not ruled by the Emperor, like Kemperbad is in Reichland and not strictly
from Nadjesgard.
From Nadjesgard, yeah, quite Nadjesgard. That's a far more recent place. Nadjesgard is a new province that the Emperor granted to Nadia, who was, as I recall, a Nordlander, so there definitely could be some unexpected connections there.
Nadjesgard.
She was granted it for reasons that I forget off the top of my head. We're now talking back to additions that Gav Thorpe made to Reichland back in the Nemesis Crown campaign.
Right. Well, it's Nadjesgard.
So that's where Nadjesgard came from. So that gives you a good place where she's from. Next, what's your family like? What was your family like? Are they dead? Are they still alive?
Let's see here. I'm going to lead into the father's no longer around, raised by mother.
Sounds good.
Only son, and say many sisters. No.
Dwarves and Warhammer, 1 in 10.
1 in 10. Okay.
1 in 10 are women.
Okay, let's.
Now that doesn't mean you can't have sisters. You could be.
I would have to have lots of brothers.
They tend to be. They tend to have a lot of brothers. There tends to be a strong sense of fraternity with dwarfs. They also have a lower sexual drive. They are very different. They've got an alien mindset as far as humans are concerned. But that's again the stereotype. Individually, you could have 5 sisters.
We can make it an oddity.
There's nothing wrong with that.
The only son, and weirdly, like even while you're saying yourself, having 2 sisters would be
Pretty
strange.
rare. Yeah.
So even leading to that, that's kind of ridiculous. I'm just thinking like also like a roleplay aspect. If that ever comes up, is like humans will be like, it's like okay, and you're like, It could be some interactions that people don't get. The cultural differences is like, that's a lot of sisters. It's like you have 2. It's like that's a lot. So I'm thinking maybe that could be a fun thing to lean into.
So a couple of sisters, a mum, so someone who's been surrounded by women for a significant proportion of his life, and now has, through his fascination for the gadgets, and presumably at some point also picked up a fascination for entertainment, is now wandering the empire. In particular, has been wandering Talabot land for about the last 20 years. Okay, that seems to be broadly what you're saying.
Yeah, something. Yeah,
Sounds good. What's your family like?
I think maybe a Varenian family.
Oh, I see. So very wisdom based, perhaps influenced by the South or null. Perhaps influenced by a local. No, there's not going to be a Temple of Rena here. That's pretty unlikely. So it could be a cultural reason. So perhaps your family is naturally leaning that way. Perhaps your own blood is external to the empire. Perhaps your blood is Tillian, or perhaps a stallion with a strong southern classical deity.
Well, I do have
influence.
classical.
The local Umberigans are known for they're relatively tall people, like 5'10" on average.
Oh, I'm pretty small.
But you're really small, so you could say that's because you're carrying a different bloodline from far further in the south or from somewhere else.
That makes sense.
And giving ourselves a cultural leaning towards Verena, quite like that. So, childhood, what was it like growing up? Were you coddled? Did you have to fend for yourself? Did you have a terrible dad like me, constantly making you have to do things and learn stuff?
I've not really thought that like this. I'm kind of just like...
Were you trained for business? You're a dwarf, so the classic one would be...
I think business...
You were trained in the family business.
Family business.
So in this case, it could be metal workers.
Metal workers.
What is it that... You've got trained engineering.
I've trained engineering and...
So perhaps your mother's an engineer.
Gunsmith and engineering.
Yeah, perhaps your mother was an engineer and your father was a gunsmith. It's a nice easy one. Combine the two. Classic dwarf. But you are a naturalized group in that you're passing the skills down rather than doing it because it's your clan heritage. You're doing it because it's your own family heritage. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that suggests that you've got a strong network of being taught and then surviving for yourself because you're off hiking it out, aren't you? Quite like that. That's nice and easy. How about yourself?
So we're talking like a Tillian background.
Yeah, possibly.
Maybe they're not that educated themselves, but they've got a dream for their child to go to like the university in Talabot or something.
So they're is it a classic sort of immigrant sense?
Yes,
they've
exactly.
got a sense of self that comes from outside. And they're looking to the south and seeing the cults of Rena and Shalia. And they have taken the cult of Rena to be something to aspire to, something that they don't necessarily have locally. And they have pushed their child towards that.
And I think probably they work, like they've got their own like restaurant or like food stall. And so she's worked a lot at that.
Okay, no, I like that.
As a
That's
child.
good. Only child, or do we have any family?
I think she's got lots of, there's lots of them.
Okay, cool. So why did you leave home then?
I've been trying to think about this, like what I feel like the driving force is the entertainment element has made them leave, and where the source of that is, and I'm trying to think, is it something they started learning about as they travelled, or is it maybe something happened in their hometown that made them go, I'm going to... It's like that drive to take the engineering and make it into something that's exciting.
So perhaps that's their own drive towards fashioning items, contraptions, gizmos that match with their own loose obsession. Many dwarves are quite obsessive, which in this case is possibly creating stuff for kids.
Yeah,
there does seem to be some sort of kid-based.
Like I imagine, be like
entertaining.
Yeah, it's an entertaining. Like,
so perhaps there's been a loss, or perhaps the sisters are younger. And most of his life he was entertaining his sisters. Yeah, he's been building things and creating things because the child. And then that turned into creating ours, and then they grew up, and now they no longer need that. You by that point had established an ability, a business, effectively doing this, and you're now on the hunt for more.
So maybe like as even and like I know your same character theoretically compared to human is like in their 20s. So our characters maturity-wise are fairly similar. So maybe as a child doing that, I say child, like in their like 40s, how do we like stall
Late
or
teens.
something? A little thing like they built the very beginnings of what this is. Maybe it all built from like a stall, and that's still in the thing that it's kind of been grown out of that as times went on.
Yep, like
and that can be fun. So it's just like that kind of drive to, I guess. I know this is like such a weird Warhammer. Dwarf is just
no,
like
it's not. This is how all characters are made.
They're all weird.
Right.
I know, yeah.
Trust me, this is sane in comparison to the backgrounds to our PCs.
Oh yeah, true.
Our PCs,
There's no
we've got
dark
spoilers.
There's no dark destiny involved. He wants to open a theatre.
Yeah, quite. This is great. There's no dark destiny with our PCs either. They're great.
Yeah,
Honest.
so I think it's the grandparents that have come from Tilia, and so the whole family lives together. Like, and it's probably an inn that does food rather than a restaurant because she's got things like evaluate and charm and haggle, so she'll have been like serving rather than making stuff in her childhood.
Okay, so why did you leave home?
To go to university. It's the dream.
Love it. Who's your best friend? Or who are your best friends? Can't be no one. It can't
To be honest, I think
in
in the current state of where this would be played from, it's probably Lindsay's character.
Best pal?
Well, we're travelling together, we're living together.
She's only 22, so
but maturity-wise, we're the same.
Maturity-wise, they're very similar.
Yeah, I'm 71, but I'm equivalent to a 20-something-year-old
so they're
dwarf,
quite
parahuman.
But also, if you've got sisters,
probably very comfortable with young women, if they're younger sisters.
Yep, love that. That sounds good. Okay, what's your best friend?
You don't need to say that.
I think she probably at university was quite like really one of the group who were really scholarly and really hardworking, and so didn't make as many friends as some people who'd gone, nobles who'd gone and were living the partying lifestyle.
Sounds good to me. Alrighty, so next. I've closed it off, so I'm going to have to reopen it again. What are your best and worst... No. What's your greatest desire? Desire. What do you really want in life? What puts your heart afire? What makes you go, I want that? It can't be dull. It can be just simply, I want to see what lies over the horizon. That's not dull. That's quite interesting. It drives you forward as a character. It can be there's a particular artifact, an item. It can be tied loosely to your long-term ambition. It can be something completely different. If you could have anything at all, what would it be?
I'm trying to think of that, just playing into character, and the only thing that makes sense is the idea of, he gets the thrill and joy of, like, the cheers of an audience. Like, generally that's...
His desire is to make people happy.
Yeah, but I think he's still got a thing, like, he likes the machines making people happy.
Yeah.
I think he's maybe a little bit cautious about being the person out front.
Perhaps even there's tie into the Corner Goblin as well, behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's like...
Okay, where the machines themselves, when you press the button,
the work's
desire is that it comes off smoothly. The whole thing goes without needing to do anything, causing everyone to be delighted.
I think my character, the where her desire comes from is that her grandparents came, to a different country, a different realm with a different language, and struggled to be, like when you don't know the local language, people think you're more stupid than you are, and so there's that aspect of that thing going on, and so her greatest desire is linked to that ambition to find the first language, so everyone can understand each other.
Oh, that's nice.
It's
that's nice.
World peace, man.
World peace, man.
So we're leaning into a wee bit of a hippie.
No, a hippie thing, like an idealistic young person who's like, do you know what the problem is? The problem is people just don't understand each other.
Like a 22-year-old.
And if they could just understand each other, and if I could just find the universal language that we all understood, not of love, that's
your character's definitely 22.
Yeah. Don't know
that
you.
Sort of love.
I'm feeling 22.
Right, so
that's
what's your best and your worst memory? Something that was particularly brilliant that you recall and you go, that was awesome, or really bad that makes a tear come to the eye.
I'm going to go with
anger to rise.
I'm going to go with Jakob's father dying. We decided he was a gunsmith, so I think there was been an explosion in a workshop or something
like that,
and that's what so maybe that even attributes elements of kind of a cautiousness when it comes to explosives or something because of that.
Love that. Good character detail. What's the best memory?
The day that the caravan finally worked and it went out on the road.
No, I love that. Okay, your side, best memory and worst memory.
She's only 22, so I think her worst memory is like, so she was more social when she got to university and she had like a boyfriend, a partner, and they split up. And it's just like...
just the worst.
It's just the worst.
Pets, no, okay,
it's just the worst.
As we
And
all
her
know,
best
that can be the absolute pets.
And her best memories are just like being at home with the family and sitting around the table.
Big family meals.
Big family meals,
Don't
yeah.
love that.
And nice.
Okay, religious beliefs. This is something that's always worth mentioning when we discuss the Empire and indeed the Old World, that we have a polytheistic society, which means that all the gods are real, they are undeniable, they exist, and veneration doesn't necessarily mean you worship gods. It often means just being sensible. Mm-hmm. It means that if, for example, you are passing through a particular land, you pay attention to the local gods to make sure you don't get their curses. It's not just, Sigmar, he is the big god of the empire, thus I must worship Sigmar. Indeed, for many people of the empire, Sigmar is almost a secondary component of their life. If they're farmers, Sigmar doesn't help the crops, but he does defend them. Sigmar is all about the defense of the empire, working towards fraternity and working together. Now, in your case, you're obviously a dwarf, and dwarves have got their own array of deities who are all ancestors. Dwarven ancestor worship is common, not just in the Carrick dwarves, which has apparently become the term of the street, as in the ones that come from all of the dwarven holds. And their ultimate ancestors who founded the very first holds. It's common also amongst the Imperial dwarves where 10 generations back, such and such did such and such. They might be named for that. They might have their own local clan that is based upon that individual dwarf. And they have effectively ancestor worship for them as well, in a slightly more Eastern view in terms of real world Eastern ancestor worship, which is less common over in the West, where many dwarves have got affiliation towards that. And it's not necessarily worship, it's respect for where you came from, for what they could do, for what you yourself are trying to do with your life, to celebrate their what they gave you, effectively. Because you have been passed on a host of skills, a host of talents and traits from parent to you, parent on down through a tree, and it ultimately comes from one of your ancestors. And calling on your ancestors who were especially good at one thing or another is exceedingly common for dwarfs. It's also worth noting that Imperial dwarfs generally don't worship human gods, they respect them.
Okay.
Which is a very different affair. They respect that they are there, that they do things, that they are most certainly involved with humans, and some humans are directly influenced by their gods. It's a very different affair for them. They don't have external deities that they worship. For them, it's always about what their ancestors did. And it's just a different setup. Yeah. So when you say, what are your religious beliefs? For dwarfs, it's almost always, I respect my ancestors.
Okay.
It can be summed up almost with that, and then it's just a matter of deciding who they are and what they did. So often figuring out your religious beliefs are less to do with what are they, it's more to do with who are they.
Okay.
Who are you representing? Who are you the ultimate last representative of? You've got an unbroken line all the way back to the beginning of dwarfs. Then it comes down to you and who is in that line. And who do you respect? And most importantly, who are you representing? When you meet another dwarf, they will think of you as all of them. And that is quite a weight to carry on your shoulders. For some, they crumble. They don't do very well. The weight of the responsibility of who they are, because of their bloodline, can make them make very foolish choices, can make them desperate to do so well that they end up screwing up. For others, it is a constant light that guides them, that ensures that they go in the correct direction, that gives them purpose. One of the reasons why clan is so important to the dwarves is that they are directly influenced by their ancestors who did certain things. They do the same. And you are fulfilling the, let's say, initial purpose of your parents. They doing the same for theirs. They doing the same for theirs. And it's not really a question you can easily answer right now beyond, yep, I got ancestors.
Something to do with mining or something to do with those kind of the air.
And engineering guilds, engineering clans, are very much a part of dwarfs in particular, it's worth noting that there's more than one example of Albion engineers, a very famous example in particular, who's not necessarily Albioner, but is Malachi Malachus, and who is Macaison, pardon me, who is absolutely a slayer, to his very core, and totally crazy, but also an engineer. So there are engineering families from there too. So very possibly there's some connection and relation through that route too. But yeah, engineering seems to be probably
so probably leading into the engineering family.
And then figuring out maybe a couple of ancestors that come from that, and then you're in a pretty good place. How about yourself?
Well, I've got a question about chaotic blood. So as I'm not fully right-clinder, can I...
Yes, you still get chaotic blood.
No, can I not take Sigmar's air and roll a different one?
Good point. You don't get that one unless you're a PC.
Oh, okay.
That one is a PC only one. It's we have the list there for the PCs. There's a bunch in there. Andy had the same when he was making his what's his face the other day. But you are a PC, so I'm quite happy with changing it.
Okay, and the other one I rolled was Ronald's Honor, which I thought was...
We've already got some.
Yeah, so I thought I'll just roll them again. And then the next one I rolled was one we still already got. So 3...
Count how many of them are.
6.
That's quite amusing.
It was funny. 3, 6. No, sorry, 3, 8, 6. Oh, Ronald's Eye.
Oh, that's different. Well, clearly you've got some connection to Ronald.
It seems Ronald, the god of luck, has plans for you. Fellowship test involving cultist Ronald are easy. Further, you can now use a fortune point to force another reroll to reroll a test if it directly influences you negatively.
Oh, you can use fortune points to force other people to reroll.
If they succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and also gain,
I don't get anything this fancy.
Oh.
and add sleight of hand.
So that means that sleight of hand as a skill is added to our careers.
Yeah. And mine. Oh no, that's not 777. Random.
While she's busy sorting that, to whom or to what are you loyal? Now, beyond family, is there anything else that you're especially loyal to?
Like, I don't see him as a kind of a devious character. I think, like, what would be an example of, like, who am I loyal to other than family? Because it's a dwarf, you know, like...
Normally, for dwarfs, it's generally clan, your family,
yeah,
your ancestors, your honour. Honour is enormously important to dwarfs, meaning that they are very loyal to themselves, almost as a group. You are playing an Imperial Dwarf, which means you can mix up with that a little bit.
I'm thinking, like, in terms of facilitating his ability to do what he is doing, a patron in some way would probably be advisable to enable me going, I have the means to do this, even if they're just facilitating, making sure that I can get to
that's why you're in Talabicland, because you've been hired to tour Talabicland, or you are... you literally have a patron who is...
So that would probably be like if we can establish some kind of
like that.
Like noble, that maybe that is my loyalty to them.
Love that. Who are you loyal to?
Sorry, I got Sigmar's Eye. Is that unlikely you to have Ranald's Eye and Sigmar's Eye?
I'm quite happy with that.
Okay.
It's nice to have it mixed up.
Sigmar's Eye is peculiar.
What's it do?
Sigmar, fellowship
presumably
tests.
you haven't plucked Sigmar's Eye out.
No,
he's now got an eye.
Fellowship-based tests involving cultists of Sigmar are easy. Yep. Further, once per adventure, you may do plus 10 damage with a single successful hit with a hammer and force the result to be a critical hit equal to the 10s die. Add melee basic.
Yeah, you basically Detlef Sierk your way through. And if you don't know what I mean, go read Drachenfels. Drachenfels clearly... Detlef Sierk has that chaotic blood trait.
I had to just
and literally does that.
I presume you're fine with that?
Yeah, totally fine.
I just thought kind of just character background, the beliefs thing, just the whole travelling thing being fundamental part of him. Is there like small little gestures one can do to like local kind of gods when they go like of certain places? So the idea that
most of the roads of the Empire have got a host of way shrines. And the way shrines are dedicated to local deities, often dedicated to local spirits that either protect roads or prey upon the roads. So it's wise to ensure that you make stops and make it appropriate gestures or sacrifices or whatever equivalent.
I think that would be something he would ritualistically do that, but in a kind of there's something
As respect to the local deities.
Yeah, he would do that. Like
that.
that would always be something he would do, and it's the years of because I don't know, like what age would he when he have left? Maybe
Probably about 55.
so he's been on the road for
good 15, 20 years.
So he probably that's part of his procedure is he does that when he goes around with Caesar Shrine. He takes the time. I think that's kind of almost part of his belief. It's the respect to the locals.
To whom or what are you loyal? Nothing.
My family, my friends.
Family, friends.
The truth.
The truth.
Oh,
like that?
Yep.
Good one. Family, friends, and truth. And then finally, the big one where everybody always needs to have a little bit of thought. I do. I've got it there. And that is, why are you adventuring? Why are you no longer just traveling, but adventuring? Why are you looking to get into scrapes? Why are you looking to make
Scrapes.
money or alternatively get access to more than what you currently have? What is it that's taking you from being your standard inhabitant of the empire into someone who's doing things that are not standard for most inhabitants of the empire?
I think for my character, because university, they just couldn't teach me the things I wanted to know. They wouldn't teach me like I'd already learned, because she's got linguistics, so she's like learning stuff, and they just don't have what she needs. She's on the road because she thinks the word will be not in the books, it'll be carried with the people. So she's going to find. She's on a search.
Okay.
She's on a quest.
I'm trying to think if this works because again, it's my knowledge and background is not as nowhere near as strong. It's a blip, but would it make sense that he maybe his life has been dedicated to his craft, and it's like it maybe feels like he's at his limit and needs to pursue something more, something that will get him in. It will probably have danger in the way, like looking for old dwarven or even any cultural ruins that may have mechanisms, designs, or even magical elements.
You've got a shared goal here. Your shared goal is to delve into the old lost holds. And find.
I was going to say maybe like you going to your ancestors.
Okay. You're looking to possibly go through. I quite like the idea that possibly your family has stories of the old holds of the Caracangor that had fallen, and that you'd migrated out like thousands of years ago, moved across Albion. And your family, like 2 or 3 generations back, had come back with the intent of attempting to reclaim their roots and figure out where they're from. And you're almost the first generation that's actually doing it. And your intent is to move back to the Caracangor, to the old lost hold. Maybe somewhere like Carrickzanda, for example, in the Grey Mountains, one of the very famous lost holds there. Or it could be any of the ones that have been taken by orcs, Queenskins, Skaven, whatever, that can be found all the way down through the World's Edge Mountains. And you're intending on getting in there and getting access to what would have originally been your clan's ancient engineering marvels. Whether that's something like a great train that went from one place to another, or whether it's some sort of flying machine or some sort of ancient device or some sort of giant walking dwarf robot, whatever it might be, as crazy as that is.
Reclaim the marvels of the clan's past.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, that's...
and she's got a somewhat similar desire, but on language. Where she's looking to try and trace down the original root of language, much of which can be found in the most ancient and now lost records of the dwarves. I think that's kind of fun.
And see, the linguistics talent gives you a boon on language mundane and skill language mundane. Does that mean any mundane language, or do I have to pick one?
You pick one. No.
For this one, it's anyone, isn't it? Because you can choose to automatically pass any language mundane test with plus linguistic successes.
It's your language mundane one, as I recall. You have to. I'll pull it out afterwards because I can't remember. Later. So do that one after. Alrighty. So that's our 10 questions done. There is one thing left to do when you're finishing off your basic character generation. You may note that we've been doing this for a wee while because we like to talk things out and generally discuss it. When we did our very first character generation for LAWhammer, we spent an entire evening doing this. All of us together, sharing stories between each other, working on how the party would work together and how each of the characters knew each other. Because that's half of the fun. Making characters with people is generally always better than making them by yourself. When you make them by yourself, you create something that is a single unit that works by itself, But when you make it with the whole party there, you start interweaving stories with each other, and it means that you create a group. And that group is much more likely to work together as they move towards whatever stories you're going to be working on. Even though we've only got 2 here already, bestest mates, friends, they've got shared goals, they've got shared long-term goals as well. They are both looking to effectively go dungeon delving in the World's Edge Mountains or some equivalent in the hope of reclaiming lost, forgotten lore. And I kind of love that. The last thing you do when you're working your way through your character is step 9, advancement. This is where you spend your XP. Okay, so if you have any XP, you can spend it now. And XP allows you to gain access to characteristics, which are the stat lines, your weapon skill, bliss skill, strength, toughness, and such like. And it costs so many experience points to get increases. Lindsay can show you how many. It also allows you to get access to talents. So say, for example, you've got 2 talents in your career you haven't taken. You can buy one of them. It costs 100 XP to buy one. So if you don't have 100 XP, you're not doing that. And then finally, you can take a career advances, which, as far as I recall, it doesn't indeed say blah here, because I couldn't be bothered writing it when I was making this doc, because I quickly pasted over a bunch of stuff for them today. And the career advances means completing your current career and moving into the next one, which costs a number of XP. But if you can't buy talent, trust me, you can't do that either, unless you're just moving into the next tier and have completed your current career. Loosely, this doesn't need to be done just now. You can throw in a few extra points here or there.
I'm taking speed reader.
If you know how to
I
do
have
it.
10 XP.
You've got 10,
I've
almost
got-
nothing.
I'm
Which
I'm
means
doing
you can
anything.
take 1 skill to increase it by 1 point.
I think we're just going to save it for now.
Let's save it. Sounds good.
I've got 130, so I'm going to take speed reader,
Mhm.
not take blather and carouser, and just complete the career and go into scholar.
Lovely. So, lastly, when you're doing this, we have one other rule. Veterans. Which is, if you want a character who survived some scraps and learned from those experiences, you can, but it comes at a cost. For each permanent fate point you spend at character generation, you gain a bonus of plus 500 XP that you can spend on further advancement. Now, if you're playing a long-term campaign, that can be kind of costly because fate points are your long-term chance of survival. But if you're playing a very short campaign, this is a super fun rule because you can just go, yeah, screw it. I don't want to have fate points for this one-off or 6-session adventure. I just want to have a character who's had a lot more experience and is a bit of a veteran. So they can do lots of extra stuff, but they're also more likely to die. They're less lucky. So that's also super fun. So yeah, cut a long story short, we're not doing that. Unless you desperately wish
No.
to throw your fate points away.
No thanks.
And that takes us to the end of character generation the way we do it. You'll notice there wasn't that many changes if you have watched right from the very beginning of the video from the standard Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay character setup. You start off with step 1 where you have heritages added. You then move on to boosting your attributes and your skills and your talents where you get a different selection for LAWhammer and you also get plus 15 attribute increases at the beginning, unlike the standard rules. But beyond that, it's just some slightly different tweaks to how equipment is handled. The loss of class, the loss of resolve and resilience, all of which change the rules slightly in terms of how they play out. But ultimately, it's the same core process. So if you're looking at how to play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4, you've pretty much got all of that covered as well through the course of what we've done here. So, is there anything you would like to gently sum as what you feel your characters are?
Yes, I'll go. My character is a relatively young dwarf engineer who has been traveling the Empire and is entertaining people with his mechanical marvels in his caravan. He is.
That's the intent.
That's the intent. That's the intent. He's
just the engineer.
He's entertaining, but not quite to the entertaining to a degree.
Yeah, he will have been travelling around Talbot Land for about 20 years when he's finished. This is step 1. We're
Yeah,
gonna do
step
2
one,
steps.
step 1. And intends to delve into the lost settlements of his clan to find lost mechanical marvels and engineering accoutrements
Love it.
to advance his skills further with the long-term hope and dream of opening a mechanical theatre in Altdorf.
Love it. How would you sum yours?
She's a student of Tillian Imperial background who has just about to leave Talabheim University to go travelling with her new friend who she met, who maybe had come to her town when she was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's been travelling for 20 years, so she'd seen him when she was a kid and seen his engineering things.
Right on the border of Talbot, would make sense.
Stayed at the family inn. They recognised him as they're quite welcoming for people who are themselves immigrants.
For the last 20 years, literally throughout her entire life, you've been passing through.
And technically, my character is an immigrant based on the origin of being
That's what I mean.
from outside and was family of immigrants as well. Yeah.
So you're both going to take prejudice immigrants then, yes?
What?
No, that's it. No, we're not doing those psychologies. They get the job done. So,
so her family are quite welcoming to people who are travellers and who are not, and a big family.
And then met up in Altdorf. You've now left. He's been seeing you pretty much every year since you were tiny, passing through each year on the big loop around Talbot Lane, coming back up the right, moving back through Talbot Lane. That totally makes sense. I really like that. And you are also eyes wide, filled with stars at the possibility of what may lie in the Grey Mountains or elsewhere, not realising just how awful the dangers are that lie within and how truly screwed you are. Love it.
And remember, I'm not that tough a dwarf.
I'm not that tough a human.
We might need some other people for our adventures.
Yeah, that's super fun. Okay, so we've got ourselves 2 characters that we built. Part 2 of this is going to be taking those characters and actually fulfilling the wishes of the players of making them the more experienced versions of themselves. Often when people play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, they just start at the beginning, they leave it there. Now, we've got, obviously, as you heard, a rule where you can make a more experienced character right from the outset, but we're going to be doing a little bit more than that. We're going to be taking those characters and building them up through a couple of careers so that they can turn it into the actual ideas that they had. Now, we're going to be using the full rules for doing so, which is also a super handy way for if you want to see how we in LAWhammer build our characters and spend our experience points. This is a good way of doing it. It's also a good way of checking out if you just play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay in general, because it's pretty much the same. The LAWhammer version is not different. We just have a slightly different set of talents. Our talents do different things, and the skills that are available are different in the careers. But the core concepts of how you move career and how you pick up skills and talents and attributes are largely the same. We do have some different rules, and we'll cover that when we go on to our second video. But before we go, I will just double check if there's any last comments.
I have been doomed.
We also didn't do wounds.
Okay.
We didn't do our wounds.
Oh, we didn't do our wounds. Oh, well, let's do our wounds. So we
But
can
it's done automatically for you.
Oh, it's just, okay. So my wounds are just 16.
You're using, how many have you got?
16.
I've got 12.
You got 12, so it's perfect.
And our character's name, we never did that in our summaries.
Yeah, totally. The wounds are automatically generated by our card sheets. And again, the card sheet that Erin's using is available for you if you go into the LAWhammer Discord. You can go and have a look.
I'll tidy it up because and stuff.
Is it lots of notes?
Well, I've been writing here, so I need to tidy up and write it and try and remember bits.
So I really enjoyed that. I hope you did as well. It gives you an insight into how we build our characters. And I'm going to be bluntly honest. This is how we did our first LAWhammer characters. It wasn't more complicated than this. We didn't sit down and do some esoteric chant and all get together and do something that was especially clever or was different to what we did here. We just sat down, we went through the rules, and we had a big discussion about what we wanted to do. At that point, there was some spoilers because all of the characters had some secrets that the other players didn't know. For example, Birdie, beep! And for example, wow, in fact, as Alan Minowith, holy crap. There was a host of spoilers that weren't shared at that point. But the overall characters, who they were and what they did, were fully shared. The only other thing that we did through the course of our first building was we built a couple of career charts. We shared that as a blog post, and I'll pop that blog post up again over in the Discord after we're done here, just so you can go check it out if you want. And it's something we're considering doing again, which was basically, what does every PC think of every other PC? And we did that breakdown of what every PC thought of every PC right when we made our first PCs. They'd already formed an idea of what they thought of each other. Then we kind of did it again just before we went live. And it's fair to say those opinions had changed because we got to see the characters in action. We got to see Elric, who is, as I'm sure you can imagine, as he was back then and as he is now, stubborn. We got to see Leopold, who was often quite superior. We got to see Alamenowith, who was an elf. And we got to see Gerhard, who came up with crazy nonsense that left them constantly going, just please stop. But all of them shone in different examples. Birdie, who would just get into any fight at all at that point. But as you'll note, for those of you who've watched the stream, she's not that person anymore. Indeed, all of the characters have developed from where they started. Some of them more, some of them less. And that means that, again, I think it's reaching the point where we will probably get our PCs together again and have a big chin wag and sit down as to what they actually think about each other. And the out-of-character conversations are really very different to the in-character ones, because the in-character ones are often, personal. They're in depth, man. And, there's certain people you like or don't like in certain situations. Out of character, you can just happily say, my character hated you at this point. I loved you at this point. And we thought you were great at this point. Thought this at this point in a way that you'd never do in time. And that can also be super useful because it regrounds you as you think about your character as to how to roleplay that character as they progress forwards. So doing these stops to have a discussion about exactly what they think can give you an opportunity to go, oh, that thing I thought they thought. I don't think the character would think that because of everything they've been through. And I didn't actually think of what it'd been like to go through all of that because I didn't really experience it. The character did. But upon reflection, that was horrific or that was really beneficial. And I just didn't really reflect that. My character is going to change now. So it's worth having these pauses. And we're going to be doing one of those relatively soon as well, which you'll all be able to tune in and watch if you wish to do so. But beyond that, thanks so much for tuning in. I had an absolute ball. I hope you both had fun too.
Very much so.
Excellent. We will be doing a part 2 at a later date, so watch out for that popping up on the blog. We might not do it with such a short-term, let's say, notice, in that we only posted about it this morning. This afternoon, actually. We only posted about it this afternoon, so we might give you a bit more of an opportunity to book the slot if you wish to do so. But beyond that, that was cool. Thanks all. That rocked. And thanks very much for tuning in. We will see you all next time.